Chapter 651. To be honest, even if Ling Han did not parry the spear strike, he would be fine even if he took it head-on. But before he had the confidence to kill Ao Jian, he did not want to expose the secret that his physique was as tough as godly metal. If Ao Jian knew about this, would Ao Jian still fight him? What a joke. Facing an opponent that could never be killed or even wounded, who would have the thought to continue fighting? Ling Han was waiting for a chance, or rather, creating a chance to let Ao Jian think that he had grasped a flaw and delivered a fatal blow. Thus, his own weakness would also be exposed, allowing him to counterattack. The two of them were evenly matched, so if you did not give me a chance to hit, how could I give it to you? For elites at their level, it was impossible that they would not hold back with every attack they delivered. They had to leave a way out for themselves. Thus, even if their attack missed, they would still have energy left over to parry and dodge. Ling Han wanted to let Ao Jian think that the attack that Ao Jian delivered could severely wound him or even kill him. Only then would Ao Jian not hold back and explode with his full strength. Once that was the case, then after his strongest attack, his own defense would also fall to rock bottom, and that would be the time for Ling Han to counterattack. And now, Ao Jian thought that he had grasped this kind of opportunity. Ling Han did not reveal any obvious flaws. This could not be hidden from a genius like Ao Jian at all, allowing the latter to easily see through this trap. Thus, after painstakingly planning, he revealed a careless flaw, and after a few consecutive attacks, he continuously enlarged this flaw, giving Ao Jian a reason to deliver a full-strength attack. The silver spear pierced through the air, and the true dragon roared. This was an absolutely powerful attack. Even if it was Ma Duo Bao who took this attack head-on, he would only be left with a grievance. The attack hit. Ao Jian immediately looked delighted. No matter how freakish you were, so what? If you were hit by this attack of his, only death awaited you. Pung! The tip of the spear pierced Ling Han's chest. The true dragon wreaked havoc, wanting to pierce through Ling Han's chest and shatter his heart. However, the clothes on Ling Han's chest were torn, but his skin exuded a jade-like luster, undamaged and undamaged. Fuck, what kind of physique was this? Ao Jian was instantly stunned. Was this guy really a human? Were you sure you weren't a monster from the immortal realm? Eat my sword as well. Ling Han took the opportunity to counterattack. Ao Jian had just delivered a powerful attack, and now was the time when his power and defense were in a vacuum. Although it was only a short instant for Ling Han, an instant was enough. The Revere Life sword blossomed with endless light and slashed towards Ao Jian's neck. 10,000 techniques returned to one pu. The sword light streaked past, and a head soared into the skies. Fresh blood soared into the skies from the severed neck like a heavenly waterfall, shaking the space as if it was going to cause the heaven and earth to collapse. He's dead. When the 7 kings saw this, they all felt their hatred vented. This person actually wanted to use their king's corpse to flog it, which made them furious to the point of insanity. Now that Ao Jian had been beheaded by Ling Han, it naturally made them excited and slightly eased the pressure in their hearts. He's not dead. Ling Han shook his head and looked into the distance. How could that be? Isn't this his corpse? The 7 kings were all puzzled. This is only his body, but his spirit has left his body. Ling Han frowned. By right, though the spirit could leave the body, that was something that only immortals could do. Moreover, it had to be a very strong immortal who had cultivated the spirit to an incredibly stable degree. It was definitely not something that could be done by any immortal. But Ao Jian was obviously only in the Shattering Void tier. Come, this person should have obtained some kind of secret treasure. Perhaps it was some kind of godly medicine that could allow his spirit to leave his body, Ling Han thought as he put away the Revere Life sword. Though Ao Jian's spirit had escaped, his physical body had been severed here, so it was not as if he had not made a contribution. Your Imperial Majesty, the 7 kings once again cried out in grief. Today was a day of great sorrow for the Purple Gold Empire. The ruler had fallen, and the name of the empire had vanished, no longer existing from now on. Ling Han sighed and said, "Let's not worry about that for now. Let's make arrangements for Brother Ma's funeral. This obtained the approval of the 7 kings. When a person died, he would naturally be buried in peace. Those who had come to observe the ceremony had all become the people who would send off Ma Duo Bao on his last journey. Towards this elite cultivator, every single one of them held great respect. He had fallen at the final step of splitting open the skies. This was his death for the entire continent. Otherwise, with Ma Duo Bao's ability, wouldn't it be easy for him to protect himself? There would always be some people who would stake their lives for their ideals. The previous ruler had passed away, and this was naturally a state funeral. Moreover, he had died for the entire continent. The funeral was held for a whole month, and Ma Duo Bao's remains were personally sent by Ling Han to the core of the earth to accompany the vast lands forever. Following this, there were still many things to do. The handover of a nation was naturally not something that could be done with a single word. There were many details and trivial matters that had to be taken care of. Fortunately, though Helian Sun Shui was no longer here, there was still the Rain Emperor, the veteran, to help Ling Han share a lot of the pressure. Helian Tianyan also re-entered the sea region and began to recover the 4 seas. Now, though Ao Jian was not dead, he was only left with a wisp of his spirit. Even if he reappeared, so what? Could he be Helian Tianyan's match? One had to know that Helian Tianyan had battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier at the time, and his freakishness was not inferior to Ma Duo Bao's. Now that he had returned to the Shattering Void tier, his strength advanced by leaps and bounds, and it was believed that it would not be long before he would be able to return to the peak. Meanwhile, Ling Han cultivated diligently. The present him still did not have the qualifications to split open the skies. To be on the safe side, he definitely had to reach the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier. People were easily forgetful. Though Ma Duo Bao had fought with great vigor at the time, after half a year had passed, everyone had all gone on to live their own lives, and very few people would mention this tragic figure again. However, Ling Han, the 7 kings, and the others naturally would not forget. They were all suppressing a burst of energy to split open the skies, to become immortals, and to sweep through the 5 sects and the Ao clan. This was definitely not something that could be accomplished overnight, but they did not lack patience and willpower. Helian Tianyan once again swept through the sea region, and the 4 seas became one, which also became the territory of the Great Ling Empire. This time, it was really true that all lands under the heavens belonged to the emperor. Ling Han could grasp the movements of every place in the world as long as he wanted to. He now controlled the resources of the whole lower realm, and added with the Black Tower, his cultivation speed was naturally astonishingly fast. Of course, the most important thing was that he had experienced the Shattering Void tier once in reincarnation, which allowed him to obtain the comprehension of the Shattering Void tier in advance, and there was no longer the slightest bit of bottleneck. Another half a year later, Ling Han finally advanced into the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier, and at this time, he was only 22 years old. All along the way, I have reached perfection, and even surpassed the limit, so my current strength has reached 10 stars. Ling Han estimated his own battle prowess. Don't say that he had achieved perfection in the previous 9 tiers, but now he could only increase his strength by 1 star. One had to know that a single star in the Shattering Void tier was a world of difference, and this kind of increase was incredibly shocking. If I go all out, my regular battle prowess can reach 20 stars. This was not Ling Han's limit, because he had just advanced into the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier, and could still polish his cultivation level, purify his origin power, and increase his strength by another level. Perhaps he could reach 11 stars of Shattering Void tier, and then his regular battle prowess would break through the limit of 20 stars. Chapter 652. Focus on fighting, don't force me to complain, Ling Han shouted. 10,000 techniques returned to one only needed the time of 1 or 2 breaths, and could still be activated no matter how short the time was. However, the accumulated power was small, and the power was also small. Lu Yuan Ji flew out, and the wooden sword swept past. A thick and long sword ray streaked past, exuding a terrifying radiance. Ling Han also gave a long howl, and raised his sword in a counterattack. 10,000 techniques returned to one was unleashed, and 29 flashes of sword chi condensed into a false ray. Under the activation of 10,000 techniques returned to one, this strike could even cut through the defenses of a deity transformation tier cultivator. After all, it was a level 10 spirit tool. Hong. False ray and true ray collided, and endless light burst forth, filling the entire cave. When the light disappeared, both Ling Han and Lu Yuanji could be seen to be riddled with wounds. Obviously, neither of them had gained the upper hand in this exchange. However, Ling Han's physique was really too strong, and the injuries he suffered were actually much lighter. Moreover, he cultivated the indestructible Heaven Scroll, and his injuries were recovering at an extremely fast rate. Lu Yuanji sheathed his sword and said, "I can't defeat you." Ling Han nodded and said, "It's very difficult for me to defeat you." Now, the 3 styles of black origin was not his trump card, but 3 mystical powers. If he drew out the sunset bow, or even used sharp arrows forged from level 8 rare metal, and used the power of the 3 mystical powers, the power would naturally rise to a whole new level. Lu Yuanji turned and left, not taking another look at that Thunder Lotus, appearing to be extremely free and at ease. This person was extremely strange, but he was able to take things on and let them go. However, he was too focused on the sword and was somewhat insensitive to human emotions. His emotional intelligence was really too low, so he couldn't be considered a bad person. The world was indeed big, with countless capable people and countless geniuses. This Lu Yuanji had never been heard of, yet he suddenly appeared. Pa. Lu Yuanji had just left when the sound of footsteps was heard again. There was no end to it. Ling Han hurriedly ran to the side of the lightning pool and plucked that lightning lotus. This wasn't a real godly medicine, and was merely a special form formed by the power of lightning. It was a kind of metamorphosis, so even if it was planted in the Black Tower, it would be useless. It was impossible for a second stalk to grow. The lightning spirit hadn't been successfully nurtured, so it naturally couldn't be considered a true living being and didn't have any consciousness to speak of. Added with the fact that the pool of lightning had already dried up, Ling Han easily plucked the lightning lotus and stored it into the Black Tower. There was no hurry to refine it now. The sound of footsteps could be heard. This time, 5 people returned, 1 man and 4 women. The man was extremely handsome, while the 4 women were beautiful. However, they were too flirtatious. Every movement, every smile, every frown seemed to be seductive. The man's gaze swept across, and when he saw the empty lightning pool, a cold expression appeared on his face as he shouted, "Was it you who took the heaven cloud purple thunder?" Ling Han did not answer. Instead, he turned around and looked at the wall full of portraits. "How dare you? My young master is asking you a question, and you dare not to answer," a woman snorted. "Ugly woman, you dare to be fierce to Nyo's Ling Han." Hu Nyo flew into a rage and glared at the other, killing intent soaring. "Bite! Bite her to death," the rabbit shouted from the side, as if wanting to see the world in chaos. However, Hu Nyo curled her lips and said, "She's too smelly. Nyo can't bear to eat her." "Then why did you bite Uncle Rabbit so happily?" The rabbit was infuriated. Rabbit meat is fragrant, delicious. Hu Nyo's eyes lit up. "You too." The woman who shouted earlier was furious. This man and rabbit actually dared to ignore her. Wait, a rabbit could actually speak? The man appeared to be impatient and said, "This young master is Shimin Jun, the heir of the Wind Moon sect. Hurry up and hand over the heaven cloud purple thunder, or else this young master will definitely kill you without mercy." Wind Moon sect Ling Han couldn't help but laugh and said, "Is the Wind Moon sect very awesome?" "Humph. My young master is the 4th disciple of the Wind Moon sect master and has already advanced into the spiritual infant tier at the mere age of 34. With such cultivation, even in the middle state, he can be classified as a top-notch genius." The second woman praised. This obviously made Shimin Jun very happy, and he proudly crossed his arms in front of his chest, putting on a posture that said, "I'm awesome. Come and worship me." Ling Han said, "Come." The sect master of the Wind Moon sect not only lost a son, but also lost a disciple. This kind of evil and despicable sect, one day I'll sweep it clean. That what? Shimin-jun couldn't help but be shocked, and took a few more glances at Ling Han. Could it be that junior brother, who was killed by you? Correct answer. Ling Han clapped his hands. Shimin-jun instantly laughed loudly, and said, "The heavens are really helping me. Master has already issued an order, and whoever can capture or kill the murderer that killed junior brother who will pass on the position of sect master. Today, this young master will not only obtain the heaven cloud purple thunder, but also become the young sect master of the Wind Moon sect." He was too happy. This was really double happiness. What amazing luck. Congratulations, young sect master. No. It should be congratulations, young sect master. Congratulations, young sect master. The four girls all said joyfully, and all pounced on him to offer fragrant kisses. Shimin-jun didn't refuse any of them, and his hands even groped all over the four girls' bodies. If it weren't for the fact that there was still Ling Han who hadn't been dealt with yet, they believed that they wouldn't mind having a go first. Ling Han covered Hunyo's eyes, and killing intent appeared on his face as he said, "Truly a group of adulterous men and women. If I don't kill, I can't clean up the world, and the bright blue sky is about to be covered by filth." He didn't say another word, and with a flash of lightning on his body, he charged over.
"How dare you!"
The four girls pounced at the same time, counterattacking towards Ling Han. Ling Han brandished a sword, and as the demon birth sword danced, who could be a match for it? Pooh, piu, 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 for heads flew into the sky, and the four headless bodies also waved their hands and feet, blood madly spurting from their severed necks. No. Shimin-jun roared angrily. Though he didn't lack beauties, these four girls were his favorites. Not only were their looks top-notch, but they were also flirtatious to the bone. Their martial art level wasn't low, either, and they could often fight on his behalf, saving him a lot of trouble. "You deserve to die." He glared at Ling Han, his eyes almost spitting fire. "Dire sisters." Ling Han charged over again, lightning flashing on his body, his speed astonishingly fast. Shimin-jun could only parry based on his intuition. Two short hammers appeared in his hands, and they were pitch black. There was a circular pattern on the hammers, and they emitted a terrifying aura, obviously extremely unusual.
Pung.
However, although he blocked Ling Han's sword, he couldn't disperse that terrifying power at all. His whole body was instantly blasted away by the sword. Pung. He crashed into the cave wall, and the shock caused his whole body to spit out a mist of blood. One had to know that this cave wall had been tempered by a shattering void tearlete, so how could it not be hard? Shimin-jun revealed a shocked expression. He was in the spiritual infanteer, but he actually wasn't a match for a single strike from Ling Han. How is this possible? Nothing is impossible. You're just a frog at the bottom of a well, so how would you know what level the elites in this world can reach? Ling Han waved his sword again. The disciples of the Wind Moon sect were all shameless and lowly people, and every single one of them deserved to die. Pooh! Shimin-jun's head also flew into the sky. Chapter 653. There will be more and more people. I have to settle this quickly. Ling Han sheathed his sword, and turned to look at the wall that blocked their way. He could not go any further. There were 999 stone boxes, and on each box was carved a portrait of a person. There were old and young, male and female. Is this a mechanism? One wrong button, and there will be a terrifying restriction that will kill, Ling Han mumbled. After his gaze swept around, he stared at one of the portraits and smiled. That should be the case. Isn't this Zi Shuexian? If one did not obtain the memory stone in the thunder battle armor and only came here by coincidence, then the possibility of choosing this box would only be 1 in 1,000. According to Zi Shuexian's personality, she would definitely not give people a second chance. There is definitely a restriction activated here, to kill the one who comes. This cave wall has been completely tempered by Zi Shuexian, so it must be used to silence people. With a flick of his finger, he shot out a burst of qi and knocked on that portrait of Zi Shuexian. Instantly, the stone wall made a cracking sound and began to move, slowly parting towards the two sides. The speed went from slow to fast, and very soon, it was completely opened, revealing a stone chamber. It was not big, no more than 3 meters wide and only about 6 meters deep. The things inside were even simpler. There was only a long table, and on top of it was a booklet. Ling Han walked in, and Hunyao naturally followed closely behind. After a moment's hesitation, Rabbit also followed in. The stone wall quickly closed again, locking them inside the stone chamber. However, though it was tightly sealed inside, it was not dark. The surrounding walls were all emitting a soft glow, as if they were made of beautiful jade. Ling Han came to the long table, sat down, and opened the booklet. This was what Zi Shuexian had left behind. There were no precious treasures, and a mighty shattering void tier elite was extremely shabby. Ling Han stood up. Instantly, he frowned, and then revealed a furious expression, his killing intent soaring. After he finished reading the booklet, he knocked the table heavily, almost flipping it over. "Let Uncle Rabbit." Rabbit snatched the booklet and immediately began to read. Very soon, it also revealed a shocked expression. He really could not help but be shocked. If what Zi Shuexian had said was true, then all the people of the vast lands were living in a gigantic lie. Ling Han sorted out his thoughts. This was what Zi Shuexian had told him. About a few 100,000 years ago, some forces in the realm of immortals suddenly became interested in the lower realm. This interest was not for the various resources of the lower realm, but for the living beings of this realm. This was an extremely shocking matter. These powers from the god world had obtained an ancient recipe that could refine all of the living beings of an entire world into a divine pill. It contained the resources of an entire world, as well as the natural laws of an entire world. Even in the god world, it was an extremely precious medicine. However, this was a taboo in the god world, and it was definitely not allowed to be refined. But it was different in the lower realm. These few forces from the immortal realm easily controlled this continent, and their representatives were the 5 great ancient sections. Why was it that every time a great disaster occurred, the 5 great sects would always be able to turn the tide? That was because they were on the same side in the first place, and they were not turning the tide, but merely cleaning up after the matter. These forces from the god world used 10,000 years as a cycle, as if they were raising livestock in a pen. They used 10,000 years to allow the vast lands to recover and also allow the environment of martial art to flourish. All sorts of elites and geniuses appeared frequently, and natural treasures also appeared in multiples. This was the accumulation of 10,000 years, ushering in a great explosion, and it was all for the sake of the god world, refining the realm pill. The pill of the living beings of an entire world naturally had outstanding effects. Zi Shuexian was an outstanding disciple of the Blue Thunder sect, and was also the descendant of some powerful race in the god world. After she understood the truth, she was extremely furious. On one hand, she left behind the truth, and on the other, she began to fight against the reapers of the god world. In the end, Ling Han arrived. There were too many elites in the god world, and the 3 of them combined were enough to suppress her. And the establishment of the Restore Heaven Academy was also a conspiracy. Its purpose was indeed to select prodigies of the present age, but it was not to leave behind some kindling for the future, but rather to bring them into the god world, and after brainwashing them, they would become the vassals of those few forces. To put it bluntly, they would become lackeys. Geniuses, after all, could become useful lackeys. Additionally, high-level alchemists or alchemists with outstanding abilities would also be brought to the god world to be taught immortal-grade alchemy techniques, but it was obviously not to nurture them, but to use them as tools for alchemy. At that time, aside from beings like Rabbit who had a background in the god world, all other living beings would be completely exterminated, regardless of whether they were humans, demonic beasts, or trees, or even rock spirits, fire spirits, or water spirits. After the realm pill was concocted, the whole lower realm would become a barren land, and almost all living beings would die out. These forces of the God realm, which were the true origins of the Heaven Sword sect and the Absolute Saber sect, were called the Heaven Sword Palace and the Absolute Saber Palace, and were also very powerful forces in the God realm. It was not that their actions were unheard of, but due to fear of their strength and the fact that they were only harming ants from the lower realm, everyone turned a blind eye to it. Moreover, beings like Rabbit, who had a background, could also escape this calamity, so the elders who had ascended to the God realm a long time ago would not make a big fuss. All in all, the Heaven Sword Palace and the other four great forces were progressing very smoothly in this matter. In total, they had already concocted the Realm Pill a few dozen times, and used this to nurture a great many elites who were also at the level of being able to summon wind and rain in the God realm. If Ling Han's physical body had not been shattered by the Black Tower in his last life, then he would only have two choices. First, he would be brought to the God realm. With his talent in alchemy, he would definitely be able to be nurtured, and perhaps he would even be able to marry a woman from the God realm as his wife. But in any case, he would still not be able to escape the fate of becoming a slave. Second, he would fight with his life, but he would definitely not be able to win against the powerful and would not be able to escape death. It was precisely because of this that the five great sects hated the Thousand Corpse sect so much. That was because the Thousand Corpse sect wanted to turn all living beings into corpse soldiers, and in that case, how would they be able to concoct the Realm Pill? There would not be enough raw materials at all. Previously, Ling Han had always been curious that if the God realm really wanted to invade the lower realm, what right did the five great sects have to resist? How could they actually chase the invaders from the God realm back? However, in reality, they were basically in cahoots. After the Realm Pill was concocted, the Heaven Sword Palace and the others would leave behind a batch of seeds, and in 10,000 years' time, the lower realm would slowly recover its vitality, waiting for the next harvest. The Heaven Sword sect and the other four great sects would be responsible for keeping watch and guiding the martial art. Otherwise, after 10,000 years, the martial art of the lower realm might only be able to recover to the level of the spiritual ocean and spiritual pedestal tier. Then, the effects of concocting the Realm Pill would be poor. And the next 10,000 years were about to arrive. The Reapers from the God realm would enter the lower realm and join forces with the Heaven Sword sect and the others. With the lower realm as the cauldron and all living beings in the world as the medicine, they would concoct a new Realm Pill. They deserve to be killed. All of them deserve to be cut 1,000 times. Rabbit stamped with rage. Chapter 654. Ling Han was also furious, the veins on his forehead bulging, burning with a killing intent that seemed to burn the heavens. Too hateful, actually using the living beings of a realm as medicinal ingredients to refine. What kind of madness was this? Could it be that the five great divine sects were all beasts in human form? But even if they were beasts in human form, the vast lands didn't only have humans. On this land, there were his friends and relatives, but they could all suddenly encounter a great disaster in the near future, causing his killing intent to soar. If the heavens are unfair, then I'll destroy the heavens. Such a thought rose in Ling Han's mind. Weng, his whole body shook, entering a strange state. Sword intent surged all over his body, as if his whole person had become a sword, showing off its edge. Fuck, this brat is too excited. About to comprehend, Rabbit exclaimed, also full of envy. People said that it was easy to comprehend under extreme emotions, but that was only for geniuses. Otherwise, if your talent wasn't enough, no matter how excited you were, it would be a waste. Xiao, xiao, xiao. Ling Han's fingers waved unconsciously, and flashes of sword qi danced. This was a secret room, and it wasn't big. As the sword qi danced, it instantly filled the entire stone room. Ioyo, you want to shoot your Uncle Rabbit to death? Rabbit hurriedly fled, but there was sword qi everywhere, so it could only circulate origin power to form a shield and take it head-on. However, Ling Han's battle prowess was too terrifying. Even if these sword qi were just flicked by fingers, the destructive power was shocking, causing it to cry out in pain. Fortunately, it was also a freak, and its skin was so thick that even Hunyo couldn't bite through it. It was fine to take a few of Ling Han's sword chi head-on, but pain was naturally unavoidable. Hunyo, however, giggled and walked freely under the sword chi. Her figure turned, and she could even unbelievably change shape and suddenly dodge, appearing extremely strange. Rabbit couldn't help but widen its eyes and mumbled, "Body of lightning, truly shocking, able to turn into lightning and change its body at will, even flashing like lightning, compressing space to form short-distance teleportation. If this girl really has an ancestor in the immortal realm, then what level of existence is that? The king of gods." Ling Han entered an unconscious state, and under the provocation, he instead obtained a breakthrough. The door of the 30-sword Qis was slowly opening for him. He had been stuck at the level of 29 flashes of sword Qi for a very long time. This was a true threshold, and since ancient times, it had been considered the limit of Qi. Naturally, it was incomparably difficult to cross. Even though he was a genius, he was still stuck. But after so many days, he already had a hazy understanding. It was as if there was only a thin layer of window paper, but he was always that little bit away. It was only at this moment, in his rage, that he broke through that layer of window paper. Wung wung wung. Ling Han's entire body was emitting sword chi, and it was no longer just his fingers. 30 streams of sword chi was truly the limit. This was a metamorphosis. Success. Rabbit exclaimed in surprise. This brat was also a freak. Comprehending chi was actually as easy as drinking water. Although the comprehension of chi was nothing much, and was only a small peak on the path of martial arts, there were still many, many higher peaks that needed to be climbed, but it was already enough to produce a freak like Ling Han. Ling Han suddenly opened his eyes, and revealed a faint look of joy. He had not thought that he would actually reach 30 flashes of sword chi in such a state. Now, he could condense Ray and no longer had to fight with fake Ray, so his battle prowess would naturally increase once again. However, joy could not erase his fury. The 5 great sects were really deranged. They had obviously been rearing the whole world as if they were livestock, but for 10,000 years, they had actually put on the appearance that they were their saviors and made the people worship them. No wonder Zi Shuexian would say that they had been living in a giant lie all along. After the destruction of the world, someone must have left behind the truth of the past, but the 5 great sects had 10,000 years to brainwash and destroy the evidence of their crimes, so they still sat high on the altar. No wonder the 5 great sects guarded the ancient map so tightly. They were afraid that there might be some clues left behind in the ancient map that would lead to the secrets of 10,000 years ago, or even the secrets of 20,000, 50,000, or 100,000 years ago. Ling Han's emotions stabilized. Agitation could not solve problems, and on the contrary, letting his emotions affect his decisions would only ruin things. For example, if he were to loudly shout now and reveal the true faces of the 5 great sects, how many people would believe him? Weren't you splashing dirty water on the 5 great ancient sects and slandering the great heroes of 10,000 years ago? Your intentions were deserving of death. No wonder Small Saber King was so indifferent to life, because in his eyes, they were all dregs, so what if a few died? I swear, not only will I flatten the 5 great sects here, but when I charge into the divine realm in the future, those so-called 5 great divine sects will not be able to escape destruction. Ling Han said, clenching his fists. Brat, Uncle Rabbit will support you in spirit, Rabbit said undependably. Ling Han Nyo supports you. Defeat everyone. You become the emperor, and Nyo becomes the empress. Nyo was very loyal and completely didn't know what bashfulness was. Ling Han laughed loudly, but when Nyo mentioned the emperor and empress, his heart moved. Zi Shuexian didn't only leave behind the truth, but also mentioned how to resolve such a predicament. Simple, split open the skies. Bring the entire vast lands to ascend into the divine realm, making the vast lands a part of the divine realm. Then, the divine realm would have the divine realm's rules, and the 5 great divine sects definitely couldn't harm the people of the divine land. Otherwise, they would really suffer the wrath of the entire divine realm. Even if the 5 great divine sects were awesome, they definitely couldn't withstand it. Splitting open the skies. How could it be easy? Foam Prayun said that shattering void and becoming an immortal would be extremely dangerous now, because the 5 great divine sects sealed off the passage to becoming an immortal in this realm and set up a killing formation that could kill any shattering void tier cultivator. In this realm, shattering void tier cultivators were the strongest. Even immortals would be restricted by the Tao of heaven and earth when they descended, but once they left this place, the shattering void tier cultivators would still be shattering void tier cultivators, but the immortals would recover to the bodies of immortals. Immortals could kill shattering void tier cultivators as easily as turning over their palms. So, aside from the people of the 5 great sects who could break open the void and enter the divine realm, anyone else would be seeking death by doing so. However, now was also the best time. Because the rules of development of the vast lands had been changed by the 5 great divine sects, practically all the accumulation of 10,000 years was unleashed in these short few hundred years. This could maximize the effects of the realm pill they concocted, and for the martial artists here, it was also an opportunity for extremely fast growth. Otherwise, where would so many geniuses come from? Ling Han couldn't help but think, what about his 4 disciples? If they all became immortals, wouldn't that be betraying their own dignity? Ling Han's expression was gloomy. If he could still see Zhang Yufeng and the others in the future, he would definitely ask them clearly, or else he would definitely execute the sect's rules and purge the immoral disciples. Now, the problem returned to splitting open the skies. Splitting open the skies had to be done in the form of a nation, because an individual's battle prowess was limited, but to bring the whole land into the divine realm, the power needed surpassed even a few hundred or a few thousand shattering void tier cultivators. So, only with the help of the power of the nation could one break through the 9 heavens and enter the divine realm, turning the vast lands into a part of the divine realm, and everyone would have the hope of becoming immortals. Ma Duo Bao. Ling Han suddenly remembered that Ma Duo Bao mentioned splitting open the skies to him several times, and directly pointed out that the divine realm was their greatest enemy. Could it be that he already knew the truth? Otherwise, why would he establish the Purple Moon Empire? Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 655. Ding Ping's gaze swept over them. One of them was called Ding Yushuan, and the other was Ding Xingwei. They had once been his underlings, and they were the kind of people who dared not go west when he told them to. But now, they were all shameless and arrogant, completely looking down on him. In reality, Ding Ping also knew that he had a crippled spirit base, and it was impossible for him to remain as the eldest young master of the Ding clan. It was not that he could not accept the clan's request for him to abdicate his position, but the viciousness of these people's words and expressions, and how quickly they turned hostile, made his heart turn cold. They were all of the same clan, so did they have to be so cold and realistic? That's right, I forgot to tell you a piece of good news. Ding Feiwen laughed loudly. A few days ago, I went to the Crimson Sun sect to become an apprentice, and I've already passed. To be able to be called a sect, that meant that there would at least be an elite of the spiritual infant tier holding the fort, and what kind of force was the Ding clan? They were only in the spiritual ocean tier, and were far too inferior. Thus, the fact that Ding Feiwen could enter the Crimson Sun sect could be said to be a huge piece of good news for the Ding clan. It was no different from their daughter marrying into the imperial palace and becoming an imperial concubine. It was no wonder that the Yi clan would make a move so quickly, betrothing Yi Yuan to Ding Feiwen. This was a true wealthy son-in-law. In the future, when Ding Feiwen came out from the Crimson Sun sect, his cultivation level should be, at least, in the spiritual ocean tier. It was not impossible for him to advance into the spiritual pedestal tier, or even the flower blossom tier. He would be invincible in Whitewater Town. Big Brother Feiwen, you're so awesome. Yi Yuan expressed her admiration at a timely moment, giving Ding Feiwen a great sense of satisfaction. Ding Ping saw all this, and his heart calmed down. At this moment, he suddenly let go and thought things through. Yi Yuan had never truly loved him. She had only taken a fancy to the position of young master of the Ding clan, and he had once been favored by the clan because of his potential. Moreover, what he liked was not the real Yi Yuan, but the gentleness that she had put on a facade. Since that was the case, why should he be sad? Was it worth it for a woman who did not like him? Why should he be calculative with these people? They only lived in a pond and had absolutely no idea how vast the rivers and seas were. Though Ling Han had not clearly revealed his identity, Ding Ping could guess that the status of this master was definitely extremely high. The domineering air that flowed out from his every movement was definitely incomparable. Just take Ling Han's previous technique, for example. In the short span of a day, he had been completely reborn, and his current power was comparable to the first layer of element gathering tier. If this was revealed, it would definitely shock everyone in the clan to death. What's more, the 9 Dragons Tyrant Body Art could allow him to possess the power of 9 true dragons after he had successfully cultivated it, which was even more astonishing. In comparison, what was the position of young master of the Ding clan worth? What was a disciple of the Crimson Sun sect worth? With a single thought, Ding Ping's mentality instantly changed, and his temperament also became much more mature. He was no longer angry. The other party had not treated him as a member of the clan, but he still remembered their friendship and calmly said, "Please excuse me. I want to go back and rest." Pooh, ha ha. Ding Yushuan and Ding Xingwei both laughed loudly. Admitting defeat so quickly? At least now, you are still the young master of the Ding clan. As long as your title was not removed, you would still be the leader of the younger generation of the Ding clan. The corners of Yi Yuan's mouth also curled up into an inadvertent sneer. Fortunately, she had discovered it early. Otherwise, wouldn't she regret it for the rest of her life when she married into the Ding clan? Ding Feiwen laughed loudly. This mountain that he could only look up to in the past had now lost even the slightest bit of its arrogance, and it was no longer satisfying to step on it. He spread his legs slightly apart and said, "Sure, crawl over from under me, and I won't bully you anymore."
He he he.
Ding Yushuan and Ding Xingwei both laughed coldly, and the 2 guards also revealed expressions of schadenfreude. They were all joking. Ding Ping's expression was calm, and he said, "Don't block my way, or you will regret it." "Oh, I'd like to see how you will make me regret it," Ding Feiwen said proudly. Ding Ping strode over, his fists clenched tightly. "You want to force your way through? You really overestimate yourself." Ding Feiwen humphed. He had already awakened his spirit base 3 years ago, and now he had also cultivated to the 9th layer of body refining tier. If it wasn't for the fact that the barrier of element gathering tier was too difficult to break through, he would definitely have already broken through. But this was fine. As long as he entered the Crimson Sun sect, he would be able to receive guidance from the great elites of the sect and be nurtured with resources. Breaking through to element gathering tier would definitely be within reach. "Get out of my way." Ding Ping was already closing in on him. "Are you worthy?" Ding Feiwen clasped his hands together and took the initiative to attack. He knew that Ding Ping had a strange strength since he was young and could not be underestimated. Ding Ping's battle prowess was equivalent to that of a martial artist in the 5th layer of body refining tier. But that was all there was to it. He simply did not dare to be hit directly by Ding Ping. If they really fought, his power of the 9th layer of body refining tier would definitely be able to suppress Ding Ping.
Hung.
Ding Ping brandished his fist, fast and heavy. Pung! Ding Feiwen's palms were forcefully parried, and the fist arrived like a hot knife through butter, smashing into his face. His muscles instantly undulated like water ripples, and his whole person was sent flying, crashing backwards. He crashed heavily into the wall, and then bounced back. He was groaning in pain, and was actually unable to get up in a short period of time. What kind of situation was this? Yi Yuan, Ding Yushuan, Ding Xingwei, and the 2 guards were all stunned. How could this be possible? That was Ding Feiwen, a martial artist in the 9th layer of body refining tier, the #1 elite of the younger generation of the Ding clan. Even if Ding Ping possessed monstrous strength, his power had already been surpassed by Ding Feiwen 2 years ago. It was only because the clan valued his potential that they allowed him to remain in the position of eldest young master. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that Ding Feiwen would actually be defeated with a single punch? Yi Yuan's beautiful eyes were wide open. Could it be that Ding Ping had been concealing his true strength all this while? Otherwise, how could he possibly defeat Ding Feiwen with a single punch? Even if Ding Feiwen had been careless and had not used his full strength in that previous attack. Ding Ping retracted his fist and strode away as if nothing had happened. But only he himself knew how excited he was in his heart. He had endured this punch for a whole half a year, and today, he had finally delivered it. It was easy to deliver a punch, but to deliver such an effect was really too difficult. Master, he called out in his heart, as if he was addressing a god, his voice filled with sincerity. The clan's attitude caused him to feel bitterly disappointed. He only had one thought now, and that was to wait for Ling Han to finish his business, then bring him away from this icy cold place. His parents, grandfather, and grandmother had all died early. Though he still had two uncles, they had basically stopped paying attention to him since half a year ago. Brother Feiwen. When Ding Ping had walked far away, Yi Yuan and the others finally helped Ding Feiwen up. That brat actually dared to plot against me. I'm going to complain to the elders of the clan and have them punish that brat according to the clan's rules. Ding Feiwen said through gritted teeth, his expression twisted.
Plot.
Ding Yuxuan and Ding Xingwei hurriedly nodded and said, "That's right. That brat must have plotted against Brother Feiwen. Otherwise, how could he possibly have defeated Brother Feiwen with a single punch?" Ding Feiwen immediately glared at the two of them. They actually still dared to mention the matter of his defeat. Yi Yuan's beautiful eyes flashed. She had to immediately return home and report this matter. It was more refreshing to read on a cell phone. Chapter 656. Normally, Ling Han couldn't fuse with this divine lightning. This was a divine item that was about to nurture a lightning spirit. Heaven Cloud Purple Lightning could definitely be ranked among the 10 strongest lightning powers in the world, and one had to be at the Heaven tier to be qualified to fuse with it. If the younger generation like Ling Han wanted to fuse with Purple Lightning, they had to obtain the help of a Heaven tier or Shattering Void tier elite, allowing them to dispel the murderous aura of the Purple Lightning with great power. Otherwise, the power of lightning would explode inside the body, and no matter how much of a genius you were, you'd die cleanly. However, Ling Han didn't have to, because he had the Black Tower. Here, he was God, and everyone had to grovel at his feet. The lightning spirit was obviously an exception, not to mention that it hadn't become a lightning spirit yet. However, the fusion process wasn't as simple as Ling Han imagined. Heaven Cloud Purple Lightning was too high level. Even if Ling Han recovered his last life's cultivation, it wouldn't be easy to refine it, let alone in this life. With the Black Tower, Ling Han only had the ability to refine Purple Lightning, and it couldn't be done in one go. Ling Han wasn't in a hurry. There were still about 4 months until the Restore Heaven Academy's recruitment, and there was plenty of time. He decided to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat during this recruitment, becoming the idol and peak of the younger generation. This way, in the future, with a wave of his arm, there would naturally be countless people willing to follow him. The role of an idol definitely couldn't be underestimated. For example, Wang Yiyun established the Heaven Striking Alliance because of Lang Yitian's prestige. Of course, Wang Yiyun's own charm couldn't be ignored, but on this point, if Ling Han really wanted, he could let Zhu Xian'er also act as an ambassador. North Region, no, the world's #1 beauty's appearance, who wouldn't eagerly come. The power of lightning spread inside Ling Han's body, continuously transforming his body, changing every piece of his flesh and blood towards the direction of lightning. This was very interesting. He cultivated body of iron sheet, and his physique was as hard as high-grade rare metal, but if he transformed into lightning, he would become an untouchable existence. An ancient legend surged through his mind, something he'd heard in his last life. For example, the body of lightning that he was about to cultivate, as well as similar body of flame, body of ice, and so on, were all known as spiritual bodies. The greatest characteristic of a spirit body was that it could ignore the bombardment of power. Even if your power was 10 times, 100 times, or 1,000 times greater than mine, I could transform into lightning and flames. I didn't have a physical body, so how could you hurt me? Isn't that invincible? No, pure strength couldn't hurt him, but chi could. Sword chi, saber chi, staff chi, as long as it was chi, it would be able to injure a spirit body. However, how much damage it could cause would depend on the difference in strength between the two. It might not cause any damage at all, but it might cause severe injuries or even severe injuries. At any time, strength was king. This was also why those who cultivated chi could be called kings. It was because this was the only method that could injure a spirit body. Of course, if chi could be used, then there was no need to talk about on. The body of Iron Sheet, however, was completely different. It increased one's physique. Regardless of whether the opponent had sword chi or not, he would take it head-on. There was no need to talk about empty words. He would speak with his own strength. A physique on the same level as rare metal, normal sword chi couldn't hurt him at all. Just from the perspective of defense, the body of Iron Sheet and the body of Diamond are definitely more awesome. After all, that's the indestructible Heaven Scroll, inherited from the Black Tower, Ling Han said inwardly. However, there was nothing bad about the body of Lightning. It could at least increase his speed by a few times. Additionally, it could make the toughness of his physique his final trump card. Others thought that they could break through his defense, but who would have thought that they couldn't do anything to him at all, and just happened to be killed by a single strike of his sword? Of course, the more trump cards, the better. Unexpectedly, not only was the Thunderclap Ninth Heaven absorbing the power of lightning, but even the indestructible Heaven Scroll was automatically circulating, competing with the Thunderclap Ninth Heaven. More importantly, the indestructible Heaven Scroll was much more awesome, making the Thunderclap Ninth Heaven look like an aggrieved little wife. Only after the indestructible Heaven Scroll swallowed many mouthfuls in large mouthfuls could it hook that little bit. Fuck, I'm cultivating the body of lightning now. Why are you fighting over it? The body of diamond can be cultivated with other worldly treasures. Don't waste the power of lightning. Ling Han hurriedly took the initiative to suppress the indestructible Heaven Scroll, not letting it continue circulating. The Thunderclap Ninth Heaven finally became a wife and began to greedily absorb the power of lightning, making Ling Han's lightning transformation speed suddenly increase. Time passed quietly. Ling Han focused on refining the purple lightning, regardless of day or night. He had now reached the peak of the flower blossom tier and polished this tier to the extreme. There was no room for improvement, so he obviously didn't need to cultivate. Cultivating wouldn't bring any benefits anyway. Fortunately, the Black Tower's space was unusually large, and there were countless flowers and trees planted. There were mountains and rivers, as well as all kinds of wild beasts and beasts. Zhu Xian'er and Hunyo wouldn't be too lonely, eating and drinking all day long. After Zhu Xian'er crossed the threshold of the flower blossom tier, her cultivation began to skyrocket. She was originally one of the strongest geniuses of the North region, not inferior to Wen Yijian, Mu Rongqing, and the others. Now that she received the support of endless resources, her cultivation naturally advanced quickly. Moreover, she was also suppressing a sense of dissatisfaction in her heart. Every time they encountered danger, they would first hide in the Black Tower, but Hunyo could accompany Ling Han and take risks. In the end, it was because she was not strong enough and could only become Ling Han's burden. She wanted to become strong. Geniuses weren't scary, but what was scary was that geniuses were willing to cultivate diligently. Normal people could only look up to them. 1 month, 2 months. Ling Han finally cultivated the Thunderclap Ninth Heaven to the minor accomplishment level and could completely transform his body into lightning. Combined with the Thunderclap Ninth Heaven, his speed would be displayed to the extreme, and at the same time, he could add the power of lightning when he attacked. This was Heaven Cloud Purple Thunder. The power of lightning could even threaten Heaven Tier warriors. If it weren't for the crucial moment of transforming into a Thunder Spirit, how could Ling Han have obtained it so easily? Luck was also a part of one's strength. Ling Han didn't get up because there was still 1/3 of the power of lightning left, and he obviously couldn't waste it. Thus, he no longer suppressed the indestructible heaven scroll, allowing this art to absorb the power of lightning again. The thunderclap ninth heaven was still operating. Cultivating a body of lightning wasn't the end. He could still continuously absorb the power of lightning. Just like how martial artists could accumulate origin power, lightning could obviously accumulate and increase its power. The quality of heaven cloud purple thunder was really too high. Ling Han felt his body undergoing some kind of shocking change. Golden light flickered all over his body from time to time, but he was one step away, unable to take the step. Body of diamond was too difficult to cultivate. It was even more tyrannical than rare metals of the same level and could at least be improved by a level. For example, Ling Han was in the flower blossom tier, so he cultivated body of diamond and possessed the toughness of 7th tier rare metals. Even if he lay down and slept, a spiritual infant tier warrior's full power attack wouldn't be able to harm him. Moreover, body of diamond could regenerate severed limbs and only needed to consume indestructible true fluid. Now, he had 6 drops of indestructible true fluid, and if he cultivated body of diamond, the upper limit could increase to 10 drops.
Charge.
Ling Han madly absorbed the power of lightning and began to condense sword ray. In the instant that he cultivated body of diamond and condensed sword ray, he would charge towards the spiritual infant tier and truly undergo a qualitative change. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 657. Suddenly, another month passed. The main reason was that the heaven cloud purple thunder was too difficult to refine, and it took a total of 3 months to finally be completely refined. Most of it was used for Ling Han to cultivate into a body of lightning, and the remaining 1/3 was used to improve Ling Han's physique, advancing into the diamond tier. However, after completely refining the heaven cloud purple thunder, Ling Han was still a step away from the diamond body. He took out spiritual liquid and gulped it down while summoning the heaven transformation bowl, harvesting the spirit medicine in the Black Tower and purifying it. This spiritual liquid was obtained from the 12 heaven mystery realms and could be called divine liquid. It needed to be diluted before being absorbed, but in order to break through to the diamond body, Ling Han only diluted it to 1/10 and started drinking. Instantly, violent energy surged within his body. It was as if a tsunami was about to smash his body into pieces. Ling Han hurriedly operated the indestructible heaven scroll to absorb the energy, making the final impact. Pleasure, pain. Pleasure was because his body received the support of a huge amount of energy, and he was approaching the diamond body. This kind of upgrade in life level was naturally extremely pleasurable. However, the most painful part was that this energy was too violent. It battered against his skin, causing it to shatter. Even his bones were making clanging sounds, as if they were about to break. At this time, Ling Han couldn't operate the thunderclap ninth heaven and turn himself into a body of lightning to avoid harm, or else he wouldn't have to cultivate the diamond body. He could only grit his teeth and endure. Pain and happiness, ice and fire colliding. Ling Han couldn't help but twitch his teeth and groan. Previously, he was numbed by the heaven cloud purple thunder, and now he was almost torn apart by the violent energy. The path of martial art was really difficult. No wonder so few could reach the end. Some things couldn't be done just by saying. It was easy to think, but it was difficult to persevere. However, the diamond body was in the process of being cultivated. If he had to walk 100 steps to complete it, then he had walked 97 steps now. He was only a little bit away from completing it. At this time, even if Ling Han's arms were broken, his legs were broken, and all the bones in his body were broken, he had to grit his teeth and endure. 98 steps. 99 steps. 100 steps. Whoa. Ling Han's body released endless golden light, and he seemed to turn into a golden god of war, majestic and high above. Diamond body at the same time, a sword gleam appeared on his fingertip. It was surrounded by 30 strands of sword chi, and it was fusing together to become one. The real sword Ling Han persisted, and began to break through to the spiritual infant tier. Comparatively speaking, the spiritual infant tier was the easiest to reach, because he had already reached this step in his last life. However, whether it was the body of Diamond or Sword Ray, they were both things that he had never set foot on in his last life. That was easy. In just half a day, the 10 immortal flowers began to grow crazily. On the Earth God platform, 5 immortal flowers pierced through the sky, and on the Heavenly God platform, 5 immortal flowers fell like a waterfall. The 10 immortal flowers twisted together to form a giant immortal fruit. The fruit contained a spirit infant. Ling Han waved his hand, and the spiritual liquid, spiritual fruits, and medicinal pills were all swallowed into his mouth, turning into the most fundamental power to help him break through to the spiritual infant tier. The most important thing was that he had now cultivated the diamond body. As his realm increased, the diamond body would also increase in grade, and the energy required would be incomparably terrifying. Thankfully, he had already cultivated the body of diamond, and this was only an increase in grade, so it was relatively easier to handle. The immortal fruit trembled slightly, and one could clearly feel a ripple-like fluctuation. At first, the skin of the fruit was golden, but now it was becoming more and more transparent, and one could clearly see that a small human figure was being nurtured inside, looking exactly the same as Ling Han. This was the spirit infant, and could be considered a martial artist's second divine sense. According to legends, after a martial artist became a god, the spirit infant could even leave the body and travel the world. And if the martial artist's divine sense was shattered, the spirit infant could even replace the main divine sense, giving the martial artist a second life. In short, in the following cultivation, the spirit infant was the focus, and everything revolved around it. Ling Han opened his mouth, and like a great whale, he madly sucked in large amounts of spiritual medicine to nurture the spirit infant as soon as possible. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Ling Han originally thought that he had already walked this path once, and breaking through to the spirit infant stage should be very fast, but he did not expect that this time his spirit infant was nurtured together by 10 immortal flowers, and the amount of energy needed to nurture it was terrifying. But correspondingly, the spirit infant that was nurtured would naturally be more powerful. Ling Han began to throw Sword Ray, Diamond Body, and Lightning Body into the spirit infant. Although it was only a legend, if the spirit infant could really leave his body in the future, then he wanted his spirit infant to possess the strongest ability. He branded the will of martial art on the immortal fruit. This was his own thing, and was completely like a blank piece of paper that he could write on. Very soon, countless vein-like patterns appeared on the skin of the immortal fruit. Ling Han had branded all that he had learned onto the spiritual infant. From a certain perspective, this was a second him. In any case, if he lost his memories one day, he would be able to rediscover his martial arts from the spiritual infant. Of course, it was only martial art and could not possibly brand his personality and experiences on it, at least not yet. Another 7 days later, the immortal fruit was covered with vein-like patterns, exuding an ancient and desolate aura. Especially the indestructible Heaven Scroll, which occupied 99% of the immortal fruit. It was as if a ruler had descended. Whether it was the 3 great mystical powers or the 3 styles of black origin, they were all suppressed to the point of being unable to do anything. From this, it could be seen how high the level of the indestructible Heaven Scroll was. Even the 3 great mystical powers combined couldn't reach 1%. Cracks appeared on the immortal fruit, and the spirit infant was about to be born.
Hung.
Ling Han felt his whole body shake, and his aura instantly soared. Spiritual infant tier in his dantian, the spirit infant broke through the immortal fruit, and turned into a small person that floated between the 2 spiritual oceans. When its eyes opened, they shone with a brilliant golden light, as if it was a god of war. Ling Han flicked his finger lightly, and the spirit infant followed suit. Hung. A sword ray shot out, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth immediately increased, increasing its power by 100-fold. After advancing into the spiritual infant tier, it was no longer the divine flowers that drew on the spiritual chi of heaven and earth to increase one's battle prowess, but the spiritual infant. And Ling Han's spirit infant was fused with 10 divine flowers, so its power was definitely not a simple addition. First layer of the spiritual infant tier, but battling a 9th star of the deity transformation tier is definitely not a problem. Ling Han smiled. This was extremely inconceivable. One had to know that the higher one's cultivation level was, the more difficult it was to battle surpassing one's cultivation level. In his last life, the Sword Emperor and the others could only surpass about 10 stars in the Heaven tier, and though Ling Han had not returned to the Heaven tier, and was only in the Spiritual Infant tier now, his battle prowess had already surpassed about 30 stars. Anyone who knew about this would feel their scalp go numb. Of course, this was under the condition that he used his full battle prowess, such as using the 3 great mystical powers, or using 2 mystical powers in conjunction with the 3 styles of Black Origin. But even if he did not use mystical powers or the 3 styles of Black Origin, merely using Sword Ray and his basic battle prowess, it was definitely not a problem for him to fight against 20 stars of the Spiritual Infant tier. Ling Han's opponents were no longer prodigies of the same cultivation level, but rather those who were 1 cultivation level higher than him. Only those who were qualified to fight him head-on. A great tremor actually appeared in the Black Tower as well. One after another, large lakes appeared out of thin air, and there were even waterfalls falling from the skies. It was extremely inconceivable. You've broken through to the Spiritual Infant tier, and the 2nd level has opened. Small tower appeared. Chapter 658. The 2nd level of the Black Tower opened. Ling Han was instantly surprised and curious, and said, "Quick, take me there." "Aren't you already here?" Small Tower said indifferently. Ling Han's face twitched, and he said, "Are you kidding me? Didn't we agree that there are 9 levels and each level has treasures? You wouldn't fuck you embezzle them, would you?" TSK. Small Tower didn't feel anything about such a joke and only sneered and said, "The Black Tower indeed has 9 levels, but each level seals a different power. When your cultivation rises to a certain level, a level's power will be released and fused, making the Black Tower stronger and more useful." Ling Han rolled his eyes and said, "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "I only awakened the relevant memories after the 2nd level opened," Small Tower said calmly. Ling Han looked at it suspiciously and said, "Does this count as amnesia?" "Whatever you say," Small Tower said shamelessly. "Fine, I'm scared of you." Ling Han sighed. "Then tell me, what benefits does the 2nd level bring me?" Small Tower said, "From what I know now, the first 8 levels of the Black Tower respectively seal the power of the 5 elements, lightning, space, and time. With each level opened, the Black Tower can gain a corresponding power." "Why don't I feel anything?" Ling Han was a bit displeased. He had been looking forward to the 2nd level of the Black Tower for a long time. "The first level is the source of earth," Small Tower said indifferently. "Why do you think the spirit herbs here can grow so quickly, 1 year equivalent to 1,000 years?" Ling Han was moved. The first level unlocked the power of earth, which was the source of earth, allowing him to continuously harvest spirit herbs. This function was extremely powerful. He asked, "Then the 2nd level unlocked the power of water?" He said, pointing to the waterfall in the sky and the lakes that appeared out of nowhere. "Yes, the 2nd level is the source of water." Small Tower nodded. "What benefits?" Ling Han asked. "You're really a Philistine, can't you ask some noble questions?" Small Tower mocked. "I'm really sorry." Ling Han gritted his teeth. "Aren't you an item spirit?
Can you not be so human?"
Small Tower was still calm, and calmly said, "Water is the source of all life. With the infusion of the power of water, first of all, the growth of the spiritual medicine will be faster and also better." This function was not bad. Ling Han nodded and said, "What's next? Can't you ask some more noble questions?" Small Tower began to mock him again. Ling Han rolled his eyes and said, "Do you believe that when I summon the Black Tower one day, I will throw it into the latrine pit to soak for 3 days and 3 nights?" The little pagoda was speechless, as if it was scared. Only after a while did it say, "Secondly, the water source and earth source interact and can produce some divine medicines, for example, the Buddhist lotus flower." Ling Han's heart trembled. The Buddhist lotus flower, he'd heard of this name in an ancient site. It was a true divine medicine, and in the divine realm, it was a top-notch existence. The Buddhist lotus flower should belong to the most inferior divine medicine. As the time of interaction between the water and earth sources, the divine medicine produced will be more precious, but the time will be very, very, very long, Small Tower said. This guy must be doing it on purpose, leaving him hanging. As expected, Small Tower said, the third level, the metal source, can provide you with rare metal. The fourth level, the fire source, can refine your divine body. If you want to cultivate the third layer of the indestructible heaven scroll, you must refine with the fire source. Fuck. The fifth level, the wood source, can once again increase the Black Tower's ability to nurture spiritual medicine, and water, earth, and wood source interact to produce supreme celestial medicine. The sixth level, the lightning source, can only be refined by lightning, and some special celestial medicines can grow. The seventh level, the space source, at that time, you can truly control the Black Tower and summon it whenever you want to aid you in battle. At that time, you'll truly know how strong the Black Tower's power is. The eighth level, the time source, is the world's taboo power, and even I'm not sure about the specifics. The ninth level, seeing Small Tower pause, Ling Han couldn't help but ask, how about the ninth level? I don't know, either, Small Tower said expressionlessly. Fuck, forget it. I'll talk to you less in the future, or I'll be angered to death by you. Ling Han sighed. However, the Black Tower opened the second level, and the addition of the water source was always a good thing. He'd obtain a true divine medicine. He calculated the time. The Restore Heaven Academy's entrance test was about to begin, so he should hurry over. Ling Han. He called Zhu Xian'er and Hunyo over, and Hunyo immediately stuck to his embrace, appearing very unhappy. Ling Han hadn't played with her for a few months again. Zhu Xian'er looked at him as gentle as water, her gaze extremely moving. Ling Han nodded and said, let's go. They exited the Black Tower and hurried back to Nine Dragons Mountain. Not long after, Rabbit came to find them and naturally scolded Ling Han. This brat actually disappeared without a trace for a few months, making Uncle Rabbit search for him. Was he trying to renege on the 2 stalks of dragon blood tyrant ginseng? 3 days later, they returned to Nine Dragons Mountain. At this time, the Restore Heaven Academy announced the most basic conditions for admission. Those who didn't meet them didn't need to participate in the following test and didn't qualify to enter at all. To qualify for the test, one of the following 2 conditions had to be fulfilled: Flower Blossom tier before 40, or Spiritual Infant tier before 70. As for Deity Transformation tier, there was no requirement, because even among the middle-aged generation, there didn't seem to be any Deity Transformation tier geniuses appearing. In another 2 days, the test would officially begin. The test was divided into 2 parts. The first part seemed very simple, and one only had to walk out of an area set up by the Restore Heaven Academy within the stipulated time. As long as they walked out, they would be able to become a disciple of the Restore Heaven Academy. The second part was the battle for stones. In another area, the Restore Heaven Academy would bury many strange stones that couldn't be stored in spatial rings and could only be kept close to one's body. These stones would emit a brilliance that couldn't be concealed by clothes at close range. Within the stipulated time, the few who managed to snatch the most stones would become disciples that the Academy focused on cultivating and would be on par with Small Saber King, Yao Huiyu, and other geniuses that qualified to directly enter the Academy. Ling Han found the Rain Emperor and Mu Rongqing, and after considering for a long time, he first brought the 2 of them into the Black Tower and then told them about Zi Shuexian's message. He didn't say it to the outside world because he was afraid that the other sky would have ears. This was what Ma Duobao had said, and he was very cautious. Ling Han didn't know what kind of ability immortals possessed, nor did he know what kind of method the 5 great immortal sects had used on this continent. Perhaps they could monitor an area and produce a reaction to sensitive words like splitting open the skies. So, safety first. Chapter 659. Sorry, your sister. Corpse Boss felt like he was going crazy. Was there really such a freak? He merely rounded out his tier and improved the level of his body arts, and his power began to soar again. Advancing 1 star was as easy as eating. Ling Han was also very speechless. His current power was mainly boosted by the 9 Dragons Tyrant body art, and after advancing into the Shattering Void tier, this body art finally exploded with terrifying might. At its peak, it could reach the power of 9 true dragons. This wasn't a fake true dragon like Helion Tianyun. In the immortal realm, only dragons that had reached the Genesis tier could be called true dragons. The power of 9 true dragons. How terrifying was that? Previously, helping Ding Ping to cleanse his marrow was also a form of training for him, and added with the 3 days of small seclusion that followed, his body art suddenly showed a great leap. Now, his brute force was at least 3 times stronger than his origin power, and this 9 Dragons Tyrant body art finally revealed its might. According to Ling Han's deduction, if origin power cultivated to its peak could reach the power of 1 true dragon, then his brute force could at most reach as much as 9 times that of origin power. Of course, this was also because the origin power art he cultivated wasn't powerful enough, so he could only reach the basic level of 1, or perhaps not even reach 1. Going by that logic, wouldn't the power of a living being be able to reach 20 stars of Shattering Void tier without relying on power of the nation? Ling Han suddenly sank into contemplation. Why must one rely on power of the nation to reach the peak? Why couldn't one be able to cultivate one's tier to the peak? In the world of martial arts, what was pursued was ultimately the strength of an individual. You couldn't possibly carry a country on your back and run around everywhere. He suddenly came to a realization. Power of the nation could only be used as an aid, and not as a means to be relied on. He wanted to cultivate his own power to 20 stars of Shattering Void tier, the true limit. The corner of Corpse Boss's mouth twitched. After Ling Han had delivered an attack, it was as if he had become a fool. What kind of contempt was this? I am indeed not a match for you. But for you to be so absent-minded like this, isn't it a bit too much? Ling Han, he roared angrily. Ling Han came back to his senses and could not help but smile. Sorry, I suddenly thought of something. Absent-mindedly in the midst of battle, what exactly were you thinking? What did you think of? Corpse Boss could not help but be curious. I was thinking of how to increase my power to 20 stars of Shattering Void tier. Ling Han did not hide it. He really wanted to have an exchange with someone, especially an elite of 2 lifetimes like Corpse Boss. Unfortunately, he did not remember the matters of his last lifetime. Corpse Boss inhaled sharply and said, Are you sure you are not talking about battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier, but power of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier? That's right. Ling Han nodded. You're a freak.
Corpse Boss pointed out.
Hey, brother Corpse Boss, though we have only met once before, we had a very pleasant conversation. Is it really appropriate for you to scold me like this? Ling Han said with a smile. If your power can rush up to 20 stars of Shattering Void tier, then how high would your battle prowess reach? Corpse Boss rolled his eyes. This was terrifying to even think about. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, People should always have some dreams, right? Corpse Boss was stunned for a moment, then nodded solemnly, and said, Yes. Then, he shook his arms and said, There are still 9 moves. Ling Han chuckled, and stretched out his right hand again, pressing towards Corpse Boss. Corpse Boss faced the attack, and shouted, Ling Han, bring out your full ability, don't make me look down on you. So it's like that. Ling Han used his other hand to rub his nose. All right. He used the earth-overturning seal, and then circulated the thunderclap, 9th heaven. A dazzling golden light and blazing white lightning emitted from his right hand.
Tung.
His palm pressed down, and Corpse Boss instantly disappeared. Brother Corpse Boss, are you all right? Ling Han asked as he withdrew his hand. Corpse Boss crawled up, continuously coughing up blood. His expression was desolate, and he mumbled, I actually couldn't even block a single move. actually couldn't even block a single move. One had to know that he was in existence with battle prowess of 15 stars of shattering void tier, and if Ling Han hadn't been merciful, that strike just now would have been enough to take his life. The gap was too big. After being at a loss for a while, his gaze gradually became resolute. If Ling Han succeeded in splitting open the skies, then he would be able to enter into the immortal realm, and he would definitely be able to find a way to become even stronger. Just as Ling Han had said, what if he increased his strength to 20 stars of shattering void tier? The people of the Thousand Corpse sect are hiding 200 miles east of this place. There is an ancient tomb there, Corpse Boss said, staring at Ling Han, and said, the next time we meet, I hope we can fight to our heart's content. All right, Ling Han agreed readily. His impression of Corpse Boss had always been very good. Corpse Boss stared at Ling Han for a while, then turned and left. Ding Ping's blood was boiling at the side, and he wished he could possess such battle prowess now, so that he could have a vigorous battle. Ling Han smiled and said, the next time that person comes to challenge Master, you will be the one to accept the challenge. Ding Ping was startled at first, and immediately became so excited that he almost fainted. He felt the fighting spirit in his whole body soar into the skies, and some kind of unknown emotion awakened in his body, making him feel extremely heroic. He half knelt on the ground and said, disciple will definitely not disappoint Master. Ling Han nodded and said, now, it's time to clear away the last trouble before splitting open the skies. He brought Ding Ping with him, and after a few strides, they arrived at the ancient tomb that Corpse Boss spoke of. The Thousand Corpse sect cultivated corpse techniques, and their whole bodies were covered in corpse chi. Once they were buried underground, no one could possibly tell the difference between them and corpses. Thus, tombs were naturally the best hiding place for them. Unless Ling Han had the determination to dig out all the tombs in the world, it was definitely impossible for him to find them out of thin air. But now that he had a spy, it was different. Ling Han did not say another word, and directly used his arm as a bow and origin power as an arrow, activating the annihilating dragon star arrow. He aimed at that ancient tomb from afar, loosened his hand, and Xiao, the arrow of origin power, shot out. It shot into the group of ancient tombs. It was best for the annihilating dragon star arrow to use a physical bow and arrow as the foundation. Only then could the shot unleash the strongest power. However, Ling Han was too strong now, and he didn't need a physical bow and arrow to unleash the greatest power. This was a real secret technique of the immortal realm, Hong. The origin power arrow shot down, and the entire group of ancient tombs instantly disappeared, turning into a deep crater. Xiao, 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 only a dozen people soared into the sky. The ninth underworld king, Corpse 2, Rong Huanxian, as well as 9 skinny old men surrounded by corpse chi, appearing in the middle of the night would definitely scare people to death. Under this attack, everyone below the heaven tier was completely annihilated. Ling Han. When he said Ling Han, Rong Huanxian immediately gritted his teeth. He and Ling Han could be considered old rivals, and they had been entangled since the very beginning in the desolate north until now. However, aside from the first time when he had the upper hand, he had always been suppressed by Ling Han, which deeply pierced a thorn in his heart. One had to know that he had now advanced into the heaven tier, and such advancement speed could be said to be terrifying, but compared to Ling Han, it really wasn't worth mentioning. In front of Ling Han, he was dim and lightless, and could only serve as a pitiful foil. He refused to accept this. He was also someone who received the favor of heaven and earth. Chapter 660. Good, good, good. Truly a shocking seedling. The ultimate elite that had been pretending to sleep immediately opened his eyes, and even clapped his hands. As for the death of a genius, so what? There was no lack of geniuses here, and being insta-killed in one move wasn't that trash, having no right to enter the Restore Heaven Academy? Little girl, what's your name? The ultimate elite asked amiably. He was the absolute saber sex guardian king, named Guoliang Kai. He had the strength of the deity transformation tier, enough to crush the current younger generation, or else he wouldn't be able to keep watch. He looked at Hunyo, filled with fondness. If it wasn't for his cultivation being too low, he really wanted to take Hunyo as his personal disciple. However, a little girl that was only 6 or 7 years old actually had spiritual infant tier cultivation. Could he teach such a genius? Probably only the sect master and the few old venerables had such qualifications. Nyo is Ling Han's Hunyo. Hunyo said in a bit of a roundabout way, running to Ling Han's side and holding his hand, looking innocent and pure. If it wasn't for the vulgar man's corpse still on the ground, crackling with lightning, perhaps everyone would be fooled by her current pure and cute appearance. Guoliang Kai swept a glance over Ling Han and made up his mind. If Ling Han's talent wasn't outstanding, he would kill off Ling Han to avoid affecting the little girl. Such a seedling could be of great use. More importantly, she was still young and could be easily brainwashed and instilled with all kinds of ideas. Hunyo went up to test her bone age again, and this time, even the disciples were extremely respectful. She obtained the love of a deity transformation tier guardian king, and as long as one wasn't an idiot, they could tell that Hunyo was so fierce at such a young age, so how terrifying would her future be? They could only look up to her. 7 years old, not even 8 years old. The bone age was very quickly determined, but Hunyo was also very annoyed. Being pricked by a broken needle was a bit painful, causing her to glare fiercely at the disciple who had tested her bone age. This ominous glint was really terrifying, even surpassing the level of the spiritual infant tier. It actually shocked the disciple so much that he wet his pants, and instantly, a foul stench wafted out. Ling Han was also surprised. He had not thought that Hunyo had also broken through to the spiritual infant tier. However, the little girl had always been strange, so no matter how fast her cultivation increased, it was still very normal. Humph. Guoliang Kai was very displeased and shouted at the disciple who had lost control of his bladder. You still haven't scrammed? Clean up before you come back. Yes, yes. That disciple hurriedly nodded and turned around to flee. In his heart, however, there was shockingly an unbelievable comparison. Hunyo's gaze was actually even scarier than Guoliang Kai's. How was this possible? Guoliang Kai was in the divine transformation realm. Ling Han walked up, and the aura of the spiritual infant tier rose slightly, proving that he was qualified to take the test of bone age. At this time, he had already returned to his original appearance. Since he had decided to establish a country and split open the sky, he decided to show people his original appearance in the future. Heaven-grade alchemists could do whatever they wanted wherever they went. Please give me your hand. For Hunyo's sake, the disciple who took the test of bone age used the word please, or else he would have directly shouted that he didn't have the right to directly enter the academy, which meant that his talent wasn't that great. So was there a need to be too polite? However, Hunyo's appearance made them understand a principle. The world was too big, and it was possible that a stunning genius would suddenly appear. You dare to be fierce to Nyo's Ling Han. But Hunyo was still not satisfied, and glared at him, the ominous glint in her eyes again. That disciple was instantly so frightened that he fell on his butt, feeling as if he was being stared at by an ancient beast. A layer of goosebumps rose all over his body, and he almost lost control of his bladder. He finally understood what his previous companion had experienced. This little girl was practically inhuman. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, "All right, stop messing around." Only then did Hunyo put on a smile and happily held Ling Han's hand, looking like an obedient little girl. Deceiving someone to death was not worth paying with one's life. Whoever believed it would be unlucky. Ling Han extended his hand, and that disciple also wiped off his cold sweat as he climbed up. He held the golden needle in his hand, but it was continuously trembling. Though he was not shocked to the point of losing control of his bladder, he was still quite frightened. Poke! He steadied his mind, and poked at Ling Han's wrist. However, the golden needle that was as thin as a cow's hair was actually unable to pierce through Ling Han's skin. Don't use origin power to defend, that disciple said in slight displeasure, but he had not even finished speaking when an expression of shock appeared on his face. What a freak. He obviously did not use origin power to protect his body, so how could his skin be so hard that even the bone-piercing needle could not pierce through? Bone-piercing needle, a tool specially used to test the age of bones. It could easily pierce through the skin of a spiritual infantile cultivator, reaching straight to the bones and plucking out a tiny bit of bone. Then, the scale on the needle would indicate the corresponding age. The younger the age, the more accurate the scale. It was measured in years, but after 100 years it would be measured in 10 years, 20 years, or even 50 years. That was because after 400 or 500 years old, a difference of 50 years of cultivation would practically have no effect. But the bone-piercing needle actually could not pierce through Ling Han's skin, and he did not use origin power to defend himself at all. How was this possible? Didn't he encounter a freak? Hurry up, when are you going to stop poking Ling Han? Hunyo was displeased. Do you have a grudge? Poking again and again, without even taking a breath. With Hunyo's urging, that disciple naturally became even more flustered, and even his hand trembled even more. Putting aside the fact that he could not pierce through Ling Han's skin, he did not even manage to pierce his hand. Trash. Guo Liangkai walked up and pushed the disciple aside, snatched the bone-piercing needle, and stabbed it towards Ling Han's hand.
One.
The golden needle fell, and quickly became shorter. It pierced in?
No.
Guo Liangkai could not help but be shocked. The bone-piercing needle becoming shorter was not because it pierced into Ling Han's skin, but because Guo Liangkai's strength was too great, and Ling Han's skin was too hard, so it directly bent, which was why it seemed to have pierced in. Fuck, this freak. The people in the surroundings had originally been laughing at that disciple who had made a fool of himself, but now not a single one of them could laugh. Such a shocking physique. Even if a deity transformation tier warrior personally attacked, they would not be able to compete. I'll do it myself, Ling Han said, drawing out the demon birth sword and slashing at himself. Instantly, his skin split open. Guo Liangkai was startled at first, then immediately pierced the needle, touching Ling Han's bones, and then withdrew the bone-piercing needle. Shock appeared on his face again, and he blurted out, 19 years old. Not even 20.
Fainting.
The people nearby were once again shocked into a daze. Another freak actually appeared. Although he was not as freakish as Hunyo, adding his terrifying physique, he really was not inferior. Ling Han put away the demon birth sword. He did not need to circulate the indestructible heaven scroll at all. The body of diamond had already engraved the profound meaning of the heaven scroll into every inch of his flesh. The wound automatically healed, and not even a scar was left, as if the sword strike from before had not even happened. This caused everyone to curse him as a freak again. How could he fight against Ling Han? The toughness of his physique was almost at the limit of the spiritual infantile, right? How many people of the same cultivation level could break through it? Moreover, his recovery ability was even more terrifying, and he was an existence that could not be dealt with in the same cultivation level. Cell phone reading was even more refreshing. Chapter 661. After Guo Liangkai's surprise, he was very happy. Now he received another genius and was determined to recruit him into the Absolute Saber sect. Although the Restore Heaven Academy was jointly founded by the 5 great sects, since it was divided into 5 great sects, there was naturally no lack of internal strife. Everyone wanted a better source of students. This was inevitable. Very good, very good. Guo Liangkai nodded repeatedly. Youngster, this old man will remember you. Ling Han smiled faintly. Guo Liangkai was only at the 5th layer of the deity transformation tier, and his battle prowess was at most 9 stars. He could suppress him now, or at least tie with him, so there was no need to take the other seriously. Moreover, he didn't have a favorable impression of the people of the 5 great sections. Ling Han and the others successfully passed. Because the large white rabbit claimed to have lived for several hundred years, it obviously wouldn't participate in this test. Who knew where it went to steal radishes? It called any precious medicinal ingredients radishes. Ling Han didn't put the rabbit into the Black Tower, considering that this habitual thief would loot all the spirit medicines and spirit fruits in the Black Tower. Villains had to be guarded against. After passing the Bone Age certification, the first test couldn't immediately begin because it was conducted uniformly and had a time limit. Ling Han and the others arrived at a large plaza. Now, over 30,000 people gathered, and there was still over half a day's time for the Bone Age test, so there would definitely be more people at that time. Truly shocking, there were actually so many that fulfilled the conditions. Ling Han sighed inwardly. The change of heaven and earth's luck exploded in these 100 or 200 years, truly having a great impact on martial art. If it were his last life, under the same conditions, it would be pretty good to have 1,000 people here. The difference was truly great. Ling Han didn't specifically find Rain Emperor and Mu Rongqing, but someone found him.
Ling Han.
Qin Lianyu appeared, staring at him, and asked with an uncertain expression. After all, Ling Han had disguised himself. However, Ling Han's characteristics were also very obvious. Who knew, aside from that freakish little girl, who could pass today's test? Long time no see. Ling Han nodded with a smile. It's really you. Qin Lianyu was finally sure, and then looked at him full of suspicion. Is this your true appearance this time? Absolutely, Ling Han said with a smile. Qin Lianyu was shocked, and said, I didn't expect you to be so young. Thanks for the compliment, Ling Han said with a smile. Brother Ling. Li Fengyu and Li Zixian also walked over and greeted Ling Han. Hello. Ling Han also nodded. This is... When Li Fengyu saw Qin Lianyu, his eyes involuntarily lit up, and he immediately took 2 steps forward, saying, Beautiful lady. This one is a promising youth, Li Fengyu, shockingly handsome. Looks off the charts. It's not that he's handsome, but he can really brag, Qin Lianyu said with a smile. People call him Big Mouth. Li bragging is his specialty. Ling Han exposed the other party's background.
What?
Li Fengyu pretended to be displeased. Not only do I know how to play, but I also play, and sing. I'm proficient in everything. Brother, don't talk so much. Li Zixian blushed. This clown brother of hers always made her feel like she was living in hell. How embarrassing. Sister, this hairpin of yours is really beautiful. Qin Lianyu walked towards Li Zixian. Women had women's ways of communicating, and soon pulled Zhu Xian'er in as well. The 3 girls chattered, talking very congenially. When Ling Han arrived at Kenyi, He Lanyan obviously followed beside him, but Ling Han shook his head at Kenyi and didn't let him come over to greet him. Hey, Wenren Qian is here. Everyone's attention was focused. This was Broad Sun's sex genius. She didn't have any illustrious reputation before, but she suddenly rose up recently and had the strength to threaten Yao Huiyu, Small Saber King, and other veteran geniuses. Truly beautiful, definitely at the level of a fairy. Only Fairy Yun can compare to me. Could it be that you forgot Dong Ling? Dong Ling obviously surpasses by a large margin. There's no second woman in the world that can compare, completely incomparable. Everyone spoke like this, all infatuated. Even Ling Han was a bit curious. How beautiful was Dong Ling to make so many geniuses so infatuated? Wenren Qian was alone, her beauty pressing down. Added with her shocking strength, no one actually dared to enter within 1.5 meters of her, and they all looked at this fairy from afar. Of course, there were also extremely daring people who went up to strike up a conversation, and those with good attitudes were only coldly rejected. Some wanted to use their clans and sex to pressure her, but were directly cut back with a sword, appearing extremely disheveled. Ling Han also arrived at Lu Yuanji. This person still held a wooden sword, his expression wooden. His entire person was like a sword, but a sword that wasn't unsheathed, giving people a feeling of being sealed in dust. Among those who could cultivate sword heart in the future, this person was definitely the most likely candidate. Extremely skilled in the sword, extremely infatuated with the sword. In his heart, there was only the existence of the sword. Geniuses, coupled with diligence and even infatuation, obviously had astonishing achievements. This day quickly passed, and in the wee hours of the morning, the Restore Heaven Academy announced that the first round of tests had begun. They had a total of 3 days' time to cross over 3 mountains and head towards a valley called Ghostlock Valley. Those who arrived within 3 days would qualify to enter the next round, and they would enter the next round in advance. Those who arrived after 3 days, had to return home. In the first round, fighting was forbidden, and whoever broke this rule would be immediately driven away. In the second round, fighting was allowed, but killing was not allowed. After all, everyone was a disciple of the Restore Heaven Academy. Here, there were constantly elites scanning with their divine sense, monitoring the fluctuations of the battles. With a command, everyone set off one after another. Ling Han nodded towards Qin Yuelian, Li Fengyu and the others, and set off with Zhu Xian'er and Hu Niu, entering into the mountain forest. He was slightly surprised. There was actually an unexpected airflow that blew over from the left side, almost blowing his figure up. Fortunately, his physique was tough. He lowered his center of gravity, and his whole person was like a mountain peak. No matter what wind blew in the 4 directions, what could it do to him? Zhu Xian'er, however, was blown up. Fortunately, Ling Han moved quickly and caught her, and Zhu Xian'er took the opportunity to throw herself into his arms. Her pretty face was bashful, but filled with joy. Hu Niu giggled and danced with the wind. Just as she was about to be blown far away, she turned into a flash of lightning and appeared next to Ling Han. "Ugly girl, hurry up and let go of Niu's Ling Han," the little girl cried out, full of jealousy. Ling Han also picked Hu Niu up, and the little girl pouted and said no more. The direction of the wind changed again. This time, it blew them forward, but not long after, it changed back, forward, and then to the left, changing extremely quickly. No wonder it took 3 days to cross over 3 mountains. It turned out that there was a chaotic wind blowing here. For most people, not to mention 3 days, even 30 days wouldn't be enough to reach the end. To walk out within 3 days and become a disciple of the Restore Heaven Academy, how could such a test be simple? Chapter 662. But for Ling Han, this was a small matter. His physique was too strong, and his body was like a mountain. So how could it be moved by the wind? Step by step, he walked as steady as Mount Tai, and with the might of diamond body, he was naturally immovable, indestructible, and eternal. The second test is to see stones, the more the better. However, as long as I can arrive within 3 days, I can proceed to the second test. It's fine to arrive a bit late, since others can just pick out the stones, and I only need to seize them. The path of a martial artist is naturally unavoidable. I'm rather interested in the airflow that appeared here. There should be a formation that forms such a scene. If I can obtain the formation's that's not bad.
It's decided then.
Ling Han brought the 2 beauties, one big and one small, to search for the location of the formation's eye. There were no spirit medicines or the like on the 3 mountain peaks, and it was just an ordinary forest, so everyone focused on hurrying on their journey and didn't need to be distracted here. When they saw Ling Han carrying the 2 women, looking incredibly relaxed, they were naturally all dumbfounded. Standing in the formation, they could obviously feel the strength of the airflow, blowing them like mortals walking into a dangerous environment with heavy snow, every step extremely difficult. But he was so relaxed while carrying 2 girls in his arms. In comparison, they really wanted to cry. It shouldn't be such a blow to people. Wenren Qianqian, Zhao Ziyuan, and the other super geniuses also saw this, and couldn't help but reveal shocked expressions. They were all very conceited, and although they didn't receive a direct invitation from the Restore Heaven Academy, they were full of confidence in their own strength. The reason they didn't receive an invitation was because they were too weak before. This time, they all decided to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat, but they didn't shock others, but they were the first to be shocked. This person should have cultivated an Earth-type gravity-type cultivation technique, which is why his center of gravity is so steady. Wenren Qianqian and the other geniuses all thought, sweeping away the distracting thoughts in their minds. This test seemed to be tailor-made for Ling Han, so it didn't matter if they couldn't compare to him in this aspect, who was perfect. Ling Han didn't care about the others. He ran all over the mountains and finally found the first formation, in the outermost area of the forest. It was a flag that was only about 10 feet tall. The flagpole was made of pitch-black metal, and it was covered with array patterns. The flag that fluttered in the wind was not an ordinary item, but there were no array patterns drawn on it. Instead, there was only a winged lion that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Ling Han was puzzled. The array pattern was naturally carved on the flagpole, but this flag was not just for decoration. On the contrary, it played a crucial role. Unfortunately, Ling Han was still unable to see through its mysteries. "This lion looks like it's alive," Hu Niu said, pointing at the flag. "It's still breathing, and it's so funny." Ling Han came to a sudden realization. The function of formation patterns was to gather the power of heaven and earth, and this flag, on the other hand, was to manifest this power and blow it towards the mountain forest, which was why the chaotic winds were formed. "Good stuff, I'll take it." Ling Han reached out to pluck the flag, but immediately, a lion's roar was heard. The lion on the flag actually manifested, turning into a male lion that was 15 feet tall. It flapped its wings and stirred up a powerful wind. "Little lion, be good and come into my bowl." Hu Niu took out pots and pans, drooling. Although it's not a real living creature, it contains a sliver of the bloodline and divine power of the winged lion. Ling Han stared at it for a while and revealed an expression of surprise. This lion was formed by the formation flag gathering the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, but there was also a sliver of the bloodline power left behind by the winged tiger when it was alive, making it full of life and as if it had a physical body. It should have been drawn with the blood of the winged lion, which was why the transformed winged lion was so lifelike, as if there really was a beast crouching in front of them. No wonder Hu Niu foolishly drooled. "All right, then I'll suppress you first," Ling Han said with a smile, and blasted towards the winged lion. He was really too strong, having formed Sword Ray, small accomplishment in body of lightning, and also indestructible body of Vajra. Even if he did not use a few mystical powers, his battle prowess had reached the peak of the spiritual infant tier, and even deity transformation tier warriors would find it difficult to injure him. The winged lion only had battle prowess of the peak of the spiritual infant tier, so what could it do to Ling Han? Xiao, 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 xiao. The winged lion continuously spat out wind blades. These had extremely strong destructive power, and the densely woven patterns were extremely terrifying, but Ling Han was too lazy to even dodge or parry. He allowed the wind blades to hit him, but they only tore his clothes apart and could not cut through his skin at all, only leaving behind a few white marks. "Little lion, obediently obey me." Ling Han laughed loudly, and with a slash of his finger, Sword Ray rose and sliced towards the winged lion.
Pooh.
The winged lion was instantly sliced into two halves by the Sword Ray. It was formed from spiritual qi, so there was naturally no blood splattering. The two halves of its body wriggled with difficulty, wanting to fuse back together, but it was a futile struggle, unable to do so at all. This was the power of Ray. The destructive power penetrated deep into the marrow, and even after being sliced, it still continued to damage. "Big Brother Han, you're becoming more and more powerful." Zhu Xian'er's beautiful eyes shone. The stronger the man she liked, the happier she was. Ling Han raised his hand and slapped her on the head and said, "Don't always tempt me." These words were too ambiguous, making him think in a crooked direction, and his heart involuntarily swayed. Zhu Xian'er moaned, and her whole body turned into spring water, soft, delicate, and captivating.
Hung.
Hu Niu was displeased and crossed her arms over her chest, pouting. Ling Han went to retrieve the flag again, and this time, there was no winged lion jumping out to stop him. He pulled out the flag, and instantly, the strength of the strange wind in this mountain forest weakened greatly. There was more than one flag here, but there wouldn't be too many either, so taking away one flag caused a huge impact. This flag is not bad. Xian Air, it's yours. Ling Han directly threw the flag to Zhu Xian Air. It was useless to him.
Un.
Zhu Xian Air was very happy. As long as it was something Ling Han gave, no matter what it was, it could make her happy. Niu wants it too. Hu Niu was not happy anymore. Then, let's go get another flag, Ling Han said with a smile. Only then did Hu Niu's anger turn to joy. She was a child after all, so she'd be happy after a little coaxing. Half a day later, they found the second flag. Ling Han put it away and threw it to Hu Niu, making the little girl happy for a while, but after playing with it for a while, she felt it was boring and threw it on the ground, no longer interested. Zhu Xian Air picked it up. This flag was full of intimidation for normal spiritual infant tier cultivators, and if placed in the North region, it was practically unsolvable. The three continued to sweep, collecting flags as soon as they saw them, making a great fortune. Why did the power of the strange wind suddenly decrease? Yeah, and the direction of change is also less. Haha, now I have the confidence to charge to Ghost Lock Valley in 3 days. Ling Han consecutively pulled out a few flags, and the direct result was that the difficulty of the test greatly decreased. If the higher-ups of the Restore Heaven Academy knew, their faces would probably turn green. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 663. Ling Han continued to split open the skies, and the mountain and river axe smashed down again and again. The heavens were torn apart, and he was finally connected to the immortal realm.
Who?
The spiritual chi of the immortal realm instantly surged in, as boundless as the sea. Fuck, I'm about to break through. Helian Tianyan exclaimed in shock. He was a descendant of the true dragon, and his bloodline was too powerful, unlike others who could not possibly break through to the immortal level without the corresponding cultivation technique. He was different. As long as he had the environment of the immortal realm, breaking through would be as easy as drinking water for him. However, he hurriedly suppressed it. He had not polished the shattering void tier to the extreme, and did not want to break through so quickly. If it had been before he got to know Ling Han, he naturally felt that battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier was already the limit, and what else could he do if he did not break through? However, after getting to know a freak like Ling Han, he also had the tendency of becoming a freak. He decided to try his best to reach the strength of 20 stars of shattering void tier, and then consider breaking through. In any case, he was still young, wasn't he? Furthermore, if he broke through at this time, he would definitely be rejected by the lower realm, but there was also the sky-locking great formation above his head, and being rejected would be courting death. He naturally would not do it. What surged in from the immortal realm was not only denser spiritual chi, but also complete regulations, which made everyone feel as if they had grasped something. Some people directly sat down in a cross-legged position and obtained the opportunity to break through. The skies had opened, but they had not completely succeeded yet. That was because the gap between the heavens and the earth was too small and could not allow the entire lower realm to pass through. However, due to the pull of the immortal realm, the lower realm was also squeezing towards the immortal realm. It was like a pregnant woman, exerting force from both inside and outside, wanting to give birth to a baby. On the other side, the elder's expression finally changed. If this continued, even if Ling Han did not make a move, the lower realm could directly pass through under the pull of the immortal realm. He hurriedly left, but in a short while, another purple-robed old woman appeared. She also had 4 suns and moons above her head, but the difference was that her 4 suns and moons were all the same size. This was the true consummate level of the sun-moon tier. She had cultivated to the peak stage, and if she did not break through to the heavenly body tier, there was no possibility of any further advancement. The purple-robed old woman looked at Ling Han coldly. Hung, a pair of phoenix wings that were 30,000 meters long spread out behind her back, and then she stretched out her right hand. There was endless blazing flames burning, and even if they were separated by 2 realms, it still caused people to feel an endless chill. These flames could incinerate everything. Xiao, the old woman flicked a finger, and a fireball shot over. It was very simple. There was no sword ray or saber ray that was 3,000 meters long, only a fist-sized fireball. But the might of this fireball was more than 10 times that of the saber ray from before. True enough, even if they were all in the same minor level, the gap between the early stage, middle stage, late stage, and peak stage was incredibly huge. No wonder those who could surpass a minor level in battle could be called geniuses. This should be the strongest elite of the 5 sects of the immortal realm. Then as long as he blocked this attack, it would be considered a true success, and he would have nothing to fear, right? Ling Han moved and used all his strength to strike that fireball. Hong. But it was useless. His battle prowess of 25 stars of shattering void tier could not block this attack, and his whole person was instantly engulfed by the flames. Your Majesty! Everyone cried out in shock. Could it be that they were going to fail again? At this kind of moment, one had to know that the sky had already opened, and as long as they could hold on for a while longer, the whole continent would be able to ascend into the immortal realm. On the other side, the old woman revealed a cold smile. How terrifying was her true phoenix, divine fire. Even immortals of the same cultivation level would not dare to take it head-on. What more a mere shattering void tier cultivator? But an instant later, the cold smile on her face turned into astonishment. How was this possible? She saw Ling Han walk out from the flames. Although his whole body was still burning, his essence, qi, and spirit were incomparably vigorous, and his qi and blood soared into the skies. He brandished his axe and continued to split open the sky. Your Majesties! All the people cried out, and all of them were so excited that their scalps went numb. This was truly a case of finding a way out at the end of the tunnel, but a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. At first, they had thought that everything would end here, but they had never thought that Ling Han would give them another pleasant surprise. After this battle, the belief that Ling Han was invincible was buried in everyone's hearts. No matter how bad the situation was, their king would have a way to resolve it. The hearts of the people were united, and the power of the nation flourished greatly. In the skies above the imperial capital, the totem of the Black Tower exuded a golden light and buzzed. The sound and light illuminated the whole territory, reaching far and wide. The nation would prosper greatly. The purple-robed old woman's expression was dark, and she once again launched an attack. One after another, balls of fire shot over. Upon closer inspection, the balls of fire all had divine patterns in the shape of phoenixes, and their might was incredibly terrifying. Ling Han knew that he was not strong enough to stand against her, so he simply did not care anymore. He simply brandished the mountain and river axe and fiercely slashed at the sky, completely relying on his physique to withstand it. This was his true trump card, a physique on the level of godly metal so she could burn it. If this was the immortal realm, Ling Han naturally would not dare to be so willful, but now that they were separated by 2 realms, what did he have to fear? If the other party's attack could be completely effective, that would mean that he had also succeeded in splitting open the skies, right? Open! 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 Every time Ling Han swung the axe, millions and millions of citizens would shout along with him. They could not share Ling Han's burden, so they could only use this kind of method to support Ling Han. To say nothing of the ordinary people, even the 7 kings and Helian Tianyun were affected by the atmosphere and shouted along with them. Open, open, open. Ling Han, too, looked like he had gone crazy. The old woman's flame bullets were really a bit terrifying. Even his physique was showing signs of melting. Thus, he definitely could not allow it to continue burning and had to complete splitting open the skies as soon as possible. Otherwise, it was really possible that he would be burned and melted. The old woman on the other side was also anxious. Splitting open the skies was only a hair's breadth away, and if she did not stop it, the lower realm would become a cooked duck and escape. She also attacked without any regard for the cost, shooting out endless flame bullets, which turned into a rain of fire that descended from the immortal realm. Open for me. Ling Han swung the axe for the last time. Hong. This gap was big enough, and the suction force from the world deity instantly increased by a few hundred times. The lower realm immediately sped up and crashed towards the immortal realm. It was like a little bird breaking out of its shell. There was a great formation sealing off the outside, but how could the impact of a small world be blocked by a formation on the level of the mountain river tier? This formation immediately shattered. The whole continent charged out together with the sea. Pung, pung, pung. Nearby, the purple-robed old woman, the white-haired old man, and the middle-aged man were all knocked to the ground, spitting out blood madly. They actually dared to stop splitting open the skies. This was the backlash of the heaven and earth. They could only lie paralyzed on the ground and watch helplessly as the lower realm flew towards the skies. In an instant, it became a smalled and disappeared without a trace. Pung! Ling Han fell from the skies. He shockingly discovered that he actually could not fly anymore. It was not that the gravity here was so strong that he could not fly, but rather some kind of regulation had restricted him from flying. But immediately, he discovered that something was different. It was the same for the others. They could not say exactly what it was, but they only felt that their bodies were comfortably warm, as if they were bathing in a hot spring. It was indescribably comfortable. They had entered into the immortal realm. From now on, they were no longer ants of the lower realm, but rather citizens of the immortal realm. Long live! Everyone cheered, feeling sincere pride for their king. But very soon, everyone was speechless, because the scenery around them was too dazzling. Under the regulations of the immortal realm, the lower realm began a long journey through the galaxy. They very soon arrived. The previous heaven and earth of the immortal realm had transformed from a gigantic continent into a sphere, and then into it. And in the boundless galaxy, there were innumerable dots like this one. It was more refreshing to read on one's phone. Chapter 664. Everyone was speechless. Originally, they should have been able to deal with enemies that could only be dealt with by moving around, but Ling Han and Hu Niu both chose to face them head-on. Moreover, they were not showing off their might recklessly, as their terrifying strength was there for all to see. Ling Han turned his finger into a sword and slashed at the skeleton monster. Shio, 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 shio. The sword chi slashed down rapidly, and there was even a blazing white electric light attached to it. The power of thunder greatly increased the power of the sword chi. One had to know that the thunderclap ninth heaven was a divine ability, and Ling Han had even cultivated the body of thunder to the small success stage. How could it not be powerful? The skeleton monster trembled violently from the electricity, and the streaks of sword light slashed at it, leaving behind scars on its hard bones. Theoretically speaking, this kind of monster definitely couldn't be injured by a spiritual infant-tier cultivator, but who asked Ling Han's battle prowess to have already leapt out of the spiritual infant-tier? With sword ray and thunder shaking the ninth heaven, his current battle prowess was at least 1 star of the deity transformation tier. Similarly, after only a dozen or so exchanges, the skeleton was shattered by Ling Han. It returned to dust, and dust to dust. Have a safe trip, Ling Han said inwardly, feeling a bit displeased because the Restore Heaven Academy actually used the remains of elites that had died who knew how many years ago as tools. From a certain perspective, what difference was there between them and the Thousand Corpse sect? Come to think of it, there was really no difference between them. The Thousand Corpse sect wanted to turn the people of an entire realm into corpse soldiers, while the 5 great sects wanted to refine them into alchemical pills. They were both exterminating all living beings, so which one of them could be considered noble? Goods of the same trade. Ling Han picked up the strange stone. It indeed couldn't be stored into the Black Tower or spatial ring. It was as if it had a life of its own and consciousness. With a thought, he summoned the rock spirit and threw the strange stone to it. The rock spirit sniffed and immediately opened its big mouth. It swallowed the strange stone in one go and started chewing it crisply. It was like a human eating a bone, which made everyone's teeth ache. You can even bite down on that? Ling Han, why did you destroy this strange rock? Qin Lianyu was stunned for a moment before exclaiming. That's right, this can allow you to become a core disciple. Li Zixian also said. Ling Han smiled faintly and said, it's fine. There are plenty of them anyway. Let's take it slow. The rock spirit only ate stones that could increase its strength. Since it liked to eat it, it meant that the stone was useful to it. After the rock spirit finished eating, it moved to Ling Han's feet like a puppy and rubbed its head against him. However, its strength was too great. A single step caused the earth to rumble. It was incomparably frightening. This was also thanks to the fact that Ling Han had cultivated the indestructible Heaven Scroll and possessed an astonishing amount of brute force. Otherwise, if he had been brushed by it, he would have either been sent flying or had his bones broken and his flesh torn. Everyone was so angry that their teeth twitched. This puppet was so intelligent, actually taking the initiative to act cute. Moreover, its strength was truly terrifying. The rock spirit stared at Ling Han with its mouth wide open. If it was a human, it would probably be drooling right now. Ling Han knew that this guy was thinking about that brick, but that stone had disappeared along with Helian Xuanxue, and he couldn't find it. He didn't know what stimulated this Hainyo to actually run off without a word. Here, this one is also a reward for you. He threw the remaining strange stone to the rock spirit. The rock spirit picked it up and gnawed on it. Although it couldn't compare to the brick at all, a mosquito's leg was still meat no matter how small it was. It would be a waste not to eat it. Ling Han's heart moved. Since the first floor of the Black Tower was the source of earth, then could it give birth to some super strange stone that could increase the rock spirit's strength? He immediately communicated with Small Tower and inquired with his divine sense. Yes, Small Tower answered straightforwardly. Ling Han was a bit driven mad and said, "Then why didn't you tell me earlier?" "You didn't ask," Small Tower said indifferently. Ling Han had a violent impulse to beat someone up again and said, "Fine, give me a few hundred or a few thousand." If Small Tower had eyes, it would definitely roll its eyes at him right now. It snorted and said, "The Black Tower is still under repair, so how can there be so much source power to expend? Only one piece can be provided every other month." 1 month then, it was better than nothing. Then how's the effect? Ling Han asked again. With 3 pieces, that rock man can break through to the spiritual infant tier, and 6 pieces can break through to the deity transformation tier, Small Tower said indifferently. Fuck, so awesome. Ling Han couldn't help but feel gloomy. He cultivated bitterly, but the other only needed to eat a few stones, and their cultivation could soar. This comparison was really infuriating. Since the rock spirit's advancement was so simple, Ling Han didn't plan to feed the strange stones to this big guy. He smiled and said, "Since you're full, then work hard." The rock spirit thumped its chest like a crazed gorilla. Everyone clicked their tongues in wonder again. This puppet was too human-like. They continued forward, and soon arrived at the bones buried underground. There were quite a few of them, and after crawling out from underground, they attacked Ling Han and the others. Everyone displayed their abilities and began to add points to themselves. However, the skeleton monster was too strong. Spiritual infant tier cultivators still had a chance to fight and seized the chance to steal the strange stones, but flower blossom tier cultivators couldn't get close at all, and were sent flying by the terrifying aura. The first stage was fine. Although spiritual infant tier cultivators were strong, the strange winds they endured were stronger and didn't have an advantage over flower blossom tier cultivators. But here, the advantage of spiritual infant tier cultivators was fully manifested. After all, the first stage was to pick young talents with good talent and perseverance, but now it was picking geniuses among geniuses, so naturally only the best could fight their way out. The rock spirit acted as the vanguard, attacking towards the skeleton monster. Pung! It just charged forward and was sent flying by a punch, scattering into broken rocks on the ground. Fortunately, this didn't destroy its core, and it soon reassembled and came back to life. AI, really unreliable. Ling Han charged out himself, and Hunyo also roared excitedly, joining forces with Ling Han. The 2 monsters attacked together, and even the skeleton monster could only suffer grievances, falling apart after a few moves, and the strange stones instantly fell out. This thing couldn't be stored in the Black Tower, and could only be carried on his back, which made Ling Han very displeased as it affected his image too much. Fortunately, this stone was only the size of a fist, not very big, or else he would really go crazy. After half a day, he already had more than 20 stones on him. Even though the light emitted by the strange stones was not very strong, it was still quite impressive with more than 20 stones added together. It was as if he had become a light source, illuminating the dim place very brightly. However, this also made Ling Han a live target. Soon, there were people who made a move on him, wanting to rob him, but the result was naturally that they were robbed by Ling Han instead. Not only were the strange stones on them taken, even their spatial rings were taken away, contributing to Ling Han. After a day, they stopped to rest and took out food to cook.
Leave the strange stones, and you can all get lost.
A man dressed in green clothes appeared, an arrogant expression on his face, and said coldly to the crowd. Chapter 665. Yuan Qinghe. Li Fengyu and Li Zixian exclaimed at the same time. He, since you know who I am, why aren't you getting lost? The well-dressed youth sneered. Seeing Ling Han somewhat confused, Qin Lianyu explained, Yuan Qinghe, Huayan sect's disciple. Like Wenren Qian, he's always been cultivating in seclusion, and no one's heard of him. But recently, he suddenly appeared and defeated many veteran spiritual infant-tier elites. His strength is truly very powerful. Some even put him on par with Yao Huiyu, Small Saber King, and the others. Ling Han shook his head and said, Small Saber King and Lang Yitian are almost 40 years old, and how old is Yao Huiyu? They're clearly of 2 generations, so how can they be compared together? However, I don't believe this guy is stronger than Yao Huiyu. What are you guys still muttering about? Yuan Cheng, he said unhappily. Since they knew of his fame, why didn't they get lost? Li Fengyu said in a low voice, I'll draw his attention. You guys go first. He immediately put on a smile and jogged towards Yuan Qinghe. Big Brother Yuan, I'm Li Fengyu. I've long heard of Big Brother Yuan's fame, and to be able to see you today, it's truly the fortune of 3 lifetimes. Big Brother Yuan is indeed awe-inspiring, just standing there emitting a scorching golden light, shining into this little brother's heart, making this little brother feel like there's an additional red sun in this little brother's life, guiding this little brother's direction. He went on, causing Ling Han and the others to stare in shock. There was actually someone who could speak such mushy words so smoothly and did not even blush in the slightest. Unlike them, who were almost about to throw up, Yuan Qinghe enjoyed it very much. His talent was shockingly high, and he'd always been cultivating in seclusion, isolated from the world, like an ascetic monk. However, his heart was extremely proud, desiring to be recognized, worshipped, and admired by others. Recently, he finally shone brightly, and the vanity in his heart naturally swelled up all at once. Being flattered by Li Fengyu at this moment, every slap hit his bones, making him feel elated and not the slightest bit mushy. Li Fengyu spoke for a long time, and his mouth was about to dry up. Turning his head around, he saw that everyone was looking at him with their mouths half open, making him anxious. He said, I'm almost out of words here, and plan to start from the beginning again. Why haven't you guys run yet? Ling Han laughed heartily and said, Isn't this a test of how much you can fabricate? Now, he even had the confidence to kill Small Saber King with his sword. Needing to flee upon hearing the news of Yuan Cheng, he was really a joke. Yuan Cheng, he also abruptly reacted. He couldn't help but reveal an angry expression as he said, Good, you actually dared to trick me. Li Fengyu was so frightened that he hurriedly broke into a run. Although he was also a genius, he definitely wasn't at Yuan Chenghe's level, not to mention that he was a major realm lower than the other, so how would he dare to exchange blows? Brotherling, it's yours, he called out. Despicable guy, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to beat you flat. Yuan Chenghe roared. He originally wanted to say kill the other party, but this stage strictly forbade killing, and he did not want to lose the qualification to enter the Restore Heaven Academy because of this. Brotherling, take care of this guy, and I'll gift my sister to you as a wife, Li Fengyu called out again. Brother, Li Zixian reprimanded with a red face. How could he be like this, selling her out just like that? Ling Han doesn't want this ugly woman. Hu Niu rushed out, deciding not to give Ling Han the chance to make a move. She turned into a flash of lightning and appeared in front of Yuan Chenghe in a flash. Her small fist punched out, blasting towards the other party. Yuan Chenghe was shocked. He never thought that a little girl would actually have such a fast speed, and even less would he have thought that she was in existence on the same tier as him. This practically shattered his confidence. He had always been proud of his own tier. A 27-year-old spiritual infant tier was practically unprecedented, but now a 7- or 8-year-old little girl was shockingly also in the spiritual infant tier, so what was there to be proud of?
Chong.
He drew out a treasured sword, but didn't unsheath it, and merely used the scabbard to block Hu Niu's punch. However, lightning surged and spread towards his arm through the scabbard. He snorted lightly, and flames surged on his body, clashing fiercely with the lightning. The intent of martial art turned into resplendent rays of light, interweaving into various shapes in the air. Hu Niu somersaulted in the air and retreated. Ling Han nodded. No wonder this person could be compared to Yao Huiyu and the others. His strength was indeed very strong, being able to take on Hu Niu's attack head-on and not be at a disadvantage. There weren't many spiritual infant tier cultivators that could do this. Little did he know Yuan Chenghe was even more shocked. He was extremely conceited, thinking that even Yao Huiyu and Small Saber King weren't his match. This time, he descended upon the Restore Heaven Academy and began his legendary path. Who would have thought that before he even entered the academy, a little girl that randomly ran out could fight him to a standstill? Although he didn't use his ultimate move, it was clear whether or not it was real once Jia made a move. This little girl couldn't be underestimated. Ugly freak, come chase Niu, Hu Niu said, clapping her hands. Yuan Chenghe snorted, unsheathed his sword, and said, "You guys let a little girl stand up for you? You really have no shame." Ling Han laughed and said, "You can't even beat the youngest among us, so don't tell me you still want to challenge others? You should be grateful that we didn't bully you and just randomly sent a little girl to play with you." This was indeed true. A little girl of 7 or 8 years old was definitely just casually playing around. Who would believe that this little girl was a great spiritual infant tier expert? Yuan Chenghe couldn't refute and could only be secretly gloomy. Who asked him to encounter such a freak? Hu Niu, beat him to your heart's content. I want to take him as a lackey, Ling Han said with a smile. Okay, Hu Niu agreed crisply. Leave it to Niu. Damn it. Yuan Chenghe was furious upon hearing this. She actually wanted to take him as a lackey, treating him like some random cat or dog. He immediately unsheathed his sword and charged towards Ling Han. Your opponent is Niu. Hu Niu's figure flashed, and she already appeared in front of Yuan Chenghe, her small fist directly striking the other's face. Yuan Chenghe was helpless, and could only tilt his head. At the same time, he thrust his sword towards Hu Niu. This might be a formidable opponent whose strength wasn't inferior to his, so how could he dare to let the other party bombard him? It was really possible that he'd be beaten so badly that even his mother wouldn't recognize him. The two immediately engaged in a fierce battle. Yuan Chenghe was indeed very strong, being able to withstand Hu Niu head-on. At least for the time being, he didn't look like he was going to lose, causing everyone to click their tongues in wonder. They were all generous in their praise for him, as the skeleton monster from before was all blasted down by Hu Niu head-on. However, when Yuan Chenghe heard this, he felt extremely uncomfortable. He actually fell to the point where he could only stand side by side with a little girl. He roared and finally unleashed his ultimate move. As the sword danced, he seemed to have turned into a sword top, spinning rapidly towards Hu Niu. More than 20 flashes of sword chi crisscrossed, extremely terrifying. Chapter 666. Interesting. Ling Han nodded. There was a limit to the sword chi a martial artist could cultivate, at most 30 flashes. Physical strength was also limited, and there was also a limit to the sword attack a wrist could unleash in an instant. However, Yuan Cheng he combined his body with the sword and moved his whole body, greatly increasing the power of the sword technique. Originally, it was the wrist that exerted force, but now the whole body merged into it, naturally reducing the burden on the wrist, causing the frequency of sword attacks to increase by a large margin. Tens of thousands of sword shadows exploded together, and there were also flashes of sword chi that shot out with astonishing power. "I'm not playing with you anymore." Hunyo suddenly turned into lightning and dodged. Her speed was so fast that even sword light couldn't catch up. Yuan Cheng, he was helpless. The power of his sword technique was extremely powerful, but what use was it if it couldn't hit? Encountering a speed-type opponent like Hunyo, he really felt depressed that he couldn't attack. He stared at Ling Han, thinking that this brat wouldn't run so fast, right? "Fight with me." He charged over because the strange stones were all on Ling Han's back. "Nyo is back again." Hunyo shouted, and as expected, charged back. She threw a punch, lightning flashing, and struck towards Yuan Cheng he's back. Yuan Cheng he had to parry, and in this way, he couldn't attack Ling Han again. As long as he used his ultimate move, Hunyo would run, but after the ultimate move, the little girl would immediately charge back and tangle Yuan Cheng he tightly, making Yuan Cheng he completely lose his temper. "Little girl, don't run if you have the guts." Yuan Cheng he was seething with anger, and couldn't help but provoke Hunyo. "If you don't run, then don't run. Do you think Nyo is afraid of you?" Hunyo put her hands on her hips. "Ugly people always make trouble. How can Nyo deal with you?" Yuan Cheng he was overjoyed, and with a flying celestial sword, he attacked Hunyo. "Nyo is leaving." "Xiao!" Hunyo ran again. Yuan Cheng he's attack naturally missed again. He shouted in anger, and said, "You go back on your word." He just started and he couldn't go on. How old was she? "Ha ha ha ha. Ugly freak is really stupid. Nyo was just teasing you." Hunyo laughed loudly, rolled up her sleeves, and said, "All right, this time Nyo will bring out my real skills and beat you into submission." How could Yuan Cheng he be fooled again? He was a proud son of heaven, not an idiot. Nyo's ultimate move, unparalleled, absolutely invincible, feared by all who see it, startled by all who see it, and super domineering dragon claw hand. Hunyo suddenly scuttled out, her hands turning into dragon claws, clawing at Yuan Cheng he's chest. "I'm back for real." Yuan Cheng he was shocked, and hurriedly raised his sword, slashing towards Hunyo. Endless power burst forth, and more than 20 flashes of sword chi crisscrossed, stunning the sky. Boom! Frightening energies collided, forming a small mushroom cloud. As the energy charged forth, the surrounding fog was blown away, revealing the bare ground. Fortunately, not a single blade of grass grew in the valley, and there were only scattered rocks. Otherwise, many trees would have been poisoned. "Hit, hit, hit, hit!" Hunyo's excited shouts were heard from the dust. When the dust dispersed, and the scene inside could be seen clearly, Hunyo had already taken the absolute initiative, suppressing Yuan Cheng he in a fight. From time to time, she would land a blow on his face, hands, and chest. Yuan Cheng he's perfectly fine face was already deformed, swollen like a pig's head, with patches of blue and purple, very comical. Everyone cried out in surprise. Hunyo was too fierce, and even Yuan Cheng, he was defeated by the little girl. Peng Hunyo kicked again, sending Yuan Cheng he flying. With a Z, he slid right beside Ling Han's feet. Ling Han crouched down, smiled, and asked, "Do you concede?"
No.
Yuan Cheng, he said with his neck held high. He obviously did not concede, and how could he be willing to lose at the hands of a little girl? Then continue to be beaten. Ling Han also lashed out with a kick. Yuan Cheng he hurriedly blocked with both hands, protecting his handsome pig head. Pung! He was kicked back by Ling Han, and Hunyo rushed up to fight again. Pung, pung, pung! After only a few rounds of fighting, Yuan Cheng he was kicked and slid under Ling Han's feet again. "How is it still not convinced?" Ling Han said with a smile. "Of course not. Yuan Chenghe's backbone was still quite tough. Then go again. Ling Han kicked Yuan Chenghe out again. Sliding here and there, Yuan Chenghe was treated as a ball, spinning back and forth between Ling Han and Hu Niu, Qin Lianyu, and the others all sucked in their teeth. That was Yuan Chenghe, an existence reputed to be able to challenge Yao Huiyu, Small Saber King, and the others, but now he was actually beaten to the point of not knowing north. Too cowardly. After who knew how many times, Yuan Chenghe once again slid under Ling Han's feet. This time, Ling Han didn't bother to ask and was about to kick the other back, but unexpectedly, Yuan Chenghe shouted, "I concede, I concede." Pum, he still flew back. Sorry, I'm used to kicking," Ling Han hurriedly said with a smile. Too fucking insincere. Yuan Chenghe cursed inwardly and was hit by Hu Niu's violent punch again, once again lying back at Ling Han's feet. This time, Ling Han finally didn't kick again, and instead said with a smile, "If you concede, then become Big Brother's disciple." Yuan Chenghe crawled up, slowly exerted his strength, and then said, "It was that little girl who defeated me. Unless you can use strength that can convince me, otherwise, I'd rather die than submit." Unyielding, Ling Han said with a smile. "Don't pretend to be unyielding with me. Even if you're straight, I can let Li Feng you, that big mouth, nag you until you turn gay. I've finally figured it out. You're the type that naturally deserves a beating. Alright, then I'll beat you up again." Hee hee. Hu Niu stopped and folded her arms on the side. It was getting interesting. Yuan Chenghe's expression was cold, and he said, "As long as you can defeat me, I'll worship you as Big Brother." Ling Han thought for a moment, put his left hand behind his back, and said, "How about this? I'll use one hand to deal with you, lest you say I bully you." So arrogant. Yuan Chenghe snorted. If Ling Han could really defeat him unarmed and with only one hand, then he'd really have to acknowledge him as Big Brother. He raised his long sword horizontally and said, "Then take my 7 swords, descend E mountain." Hung. A wave of qi gushed out of his body, raising dust and forming a circle that spread out in all directions. He was accumulating power, and the power of this sword was absolutely tyrannical. Ling Han didn't rush to attack. He wanted to subdue this genius, so he had to convince him. 7 swords, descend E mountain. Yuan Chenghe attacked. First sword, end of mountains and rivers. Sword light scattered, and sword force surrounded, layer upon layer. There was sword light everywhere, and if one was enveloped by this sword light, it would definitely be the end of mountains and rivers. Ling Han used his arm as a sword, thrusting towards his opponent. Sword intent circulated, making people feel that this was completely an exceptional treasured sword. Ignorant. Seeing that Ling Han actually wanted to use his arm to block his treasured sword, Yuan Chenghe couldn't help but snort. Was he seeking his own death? Chapter 667. Li Weiwei stared at Ling Han. "It's one thing for my father to lie to me, but what right do you, a stranger, have to bully me? What did I do to offend you that you have to treat me like this? Haha, if you're willing to bet, you must be willing to accept your loss. In the future, obediently go to the Scarlet Heaven Academy and don't always think of running around," Minister Li said sternly. He was really afraid that this precious daughter of his would act against him when her temper flared up. Li Weiwei pouted. She naturally did not dare to disobey her father's orders, but this brat? Humph. I won't let him off so easily. I'll definitely teach him a lesson. Ling Han took in her expression and knew that this little girl would not leave the matter at that. But what could he do? The left minister had already said so. If he deliberately lost to Li Weiwei, then he would be going against the left minister, and the consequences of the two were completely different. However, if it was only this kind of unruly young miss, he was not afraid. He was only afraid that she would bring out an elite of the immortal level. If Ling Han did not want to expose the secret of the Black Tower, then he could only endure for a while. "You'd better not force me," Ling Han said in his mind. He appeared to be easygoing, but the pride in his body was firm. At worst, he would just fight. Hee hee, Wei Wei, you have to learn more from Ling Han. He came by splitting open the skies, and his talent in martial arts is who knows how much higher than yours. Minister Li used Ling Han as a role model, wanting to educate his daughter well. If this was used on any of his subordinates, they would definitely be filled with fear and trepidation. Even if they had to put on an act, they would still ask Ling Han for guidance. However, how could Li Weiwei care? If she really was obedient, why would there be a need for the left minister to specially set up a trap and make a bet? No matter how strong a person was, he would still have a weak spot. Minister Li's weak spot was obviously this little daughter of his. He spoiled her to the core, so much so that he could not even bear to reprimand her. Li Weiwei was still humming, her bright eyes constantly glancing at Ling Han. Naturally, she was not the slightest bit unconvinced. However, she was still very curious. This brat obviously did not have 3 heads or 6 arms when he went up, so how did he manage to split open the skies? Every year, there would be several thousand shattering void tier elites that entered the immortal realm from the lower realms. It was not strange at all, but to come by splitting open the skies, at least in the history of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, there had never been such a case. This was a man who had created history. At first, she would definitely be very curious, but now, she only had one thought in her mind: to properly teach this arrogant, black-bellied guy a lesson. He actually dared to trick her. She humphed and said, "That is only because he has cultivated the Shattering Void tier to a slightly more powerful level. Whether he can break through to the immortal level is still uncertain. If he cannot reach the immortal level, then no matter how freakish he is, he will still be suppressed with a flip of his hand. Moreover, the immortal level is divided into 5 major tiers and 20 minor tiers, and each step is more difficult than the last. There is still a way to climb, so there is nothing to be proud of." Minister Li laughed loudly, shook his head, and said, "Your skills are inferior, and you still dare to be so arrogant after losing? Your daughter was just careless." Li Weiwei ran to Minister Li's side and shook his arm. Then, she fixed her eyes on Ling Han, pointed at him, and said, "What, Han? Let's compete again in 10 days' time. However, it will be during the examination of the Northern Institution. I do not believe that I cannot defeat you." Now that things had come to this, giving in would not cause the other party to give up. Instead, it would cause the other party to despise him even more. Ling Han smiled calmly and said, "All right, then we'll compete again at that time." He was very calm, as if he did not take it seriously at all. Li Weiwei was so angry that she wanted to stomp her feet. This bastard brat, how dare he look down on her like this? It had to be known that she was one of the 3 great beauties of the imperial city. Who knew how many descendants of generals and ministers wanted to marry her, but she did not take them seriously at all. "You a country brat, are your dog eyes blind?" No, she couldn't wait for 10 days. If she had to endure this anger for 10 days, she would definitely explode in anger. Li Weiwei immediately turned around and left. She wanted to find someone to help suppress Ling Han, or else she could forget about sleeping at night. This girl was used to being willful, and even Minister Li could not stop her. He could not keep a straight face and berate her sternly, so he could only shake his head and smile bitterly. However, his expression immediately turned serious, and he said to Ling Han, "Tell me about that small world of yours, as well as the situation of splitting open the skies." Ling Han told him most of the situation truthfully, but naturally would not mention the matter of the Black Tower, nor would he mention that he had a previous life. There were also some important information that he withheld, such as the Rock Palace and the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire. In any case, this had nothing to do with splitting open the skies. The left minister was a very cautious person. After asking about every detail of splitting open the skies, he finally nodded and said, "I heard from Qing Yun that you want to enroll into the Scarlet Heaven Academy yourself." "Yes," Ling Han said solemnly. Even if he had lived 2 lives, he was still who knew how many millennia younger than the left minister. Added with the fact that the latter was an elite of the heavenly body tier, it was only right for him to be a little more respectful. In the world of martial arts, the strong would always receive respect. However, Ling Han would definitely not go and grovel. With his pride and unyielding character, how could he kneel and bend his waist? Minister Li smiled and said, "Since you can split open the skies, your battle prowess must have reached 20 stars of shattering void tier. In this batch of new students, your battle prowess should be number 1. However, the Scarlet Heaven Academy does not assess battle prowess, but rather one's martial arts talent, the strength of one's spirit, and battle techniques. If you want to enter the top 10 or even the top 3, it will be very difficult." He did not respect Ling Han in the slightest. How could a martial artist from a small world compete with the geniuses here in terms of talent? With the guidance of an elite of the immortal level, there was no need to even mention battle techniques. It was unknown how far behind the martial artist from a small world was. And one's spirit was the biggest shortcoming of a martial artist from a small world. You would only begin to cultivate your spirit when you reach the shattering void tier, but for a descendant of a noble like Li Weiwei, she had obtained all kinds of treasures to nurture her spirit the moment she was born. Even if it was only a dozen or 20 years' time, the strength of her spirit would surpass that of a person from a small world by how many times? Thus, if it was determined by martial arts competition, then Ling Han would basically be number 1 without a doubt. However, according to the usual assessment of the Scarlet Heaven Academy, it would be extremely difficult for Ling Han to enter the top 10, what more first place. "I am willing to give it a try," Ling Han said. He was filled with confidence in himself. Minister Li nodded. With his cultivation level and status, being able to find the time to see Ling Han was already giving him enough face. Most importantly, Ling Han had come by splitting open the sky. This was too rare, so he wanted to see him. Since he had seen him, he gave him a few words of encouragement. After all, Ling Han was also his subordinate. "In these 10 days, you will stay here first. When you have entered the Scarlet Heaven Academy, you can move there." Ling Han nodded and said, "I have troubled my lord." Xiang Qingyan did not need Minister Li to speak at all. He had already made an inviting gesture towards Ling Han and said, "Lord Left Minister needs to rest. I will send you to a side courtyard to rest." The two of them left. Minister Li stroked his beard and mumbled, even if his talent is not the best, since he was able to come by splitting open the sky, he must have something outstanding about him. If he can shine in the assessment, this minister can nurture him a little. After all, it is almost time. Chapter 668. A nice romance. That was really a big guy. Everyone revealed a shocked expression. This was a giant monster, 300 meters tall, and its entire body was actually formed from corpses. At least 10,000 corpses formed its current appearance, making people feel fear just by looking at it. Each of the corpses seemed to have come to life. They stretched out their skeletal arms and opened their mouths as if they were screaming. The earth split open, and this giant skeleton stepped on the mountain rocks, emitting a demonic godlike presence. Ling Han couldn't see through this monster's strength, because this guy wasn't a normal martial artist, but was assembled from 10,000 corpses and somehow seemed to have opened a second life. He only had one feeling, and that was that this monster was very powerful, extremely powerful. This can't also be the exam content that the Academy gave us, right? Li Fengyu swallowed, his eyes popping out. Probably even the Restore Heaven Academy can't create such a monster. Ling Han shook his head. The ancient 5 great sects goal was the realm pill that only appeared once every 10,000 years, so how could they research this kind of thing? It was more like the 1,000 corpse sect. Wait! How could there be so many skeletons here? Additionally, every one of the skeletons was so powerful. How could they be at least at the sky human stage? Could it be that this place was once a battlefield in the ancient times, the place where the martial artists of the vast lands and the 5 great divine sects fought the final battle? Otherwise, how could there be so many powerful ancient corpses? However, after these ancient corpses were buried for too many years, an inconceivable change had obviously occurred, and they actually formed a corpse king. Over 10,000 heaven tier warriors, and there might even be a few shattering void tier existences. Even if they experienced too many years and the patterns on the bones were all worn away, no longer having the divine splendor from back then, the quantity was there, after all, so how terrifying would it be when combined together? Go, 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 go. Ling Han didn't say another word, grabbed Zhu Xian'er and Hunyo, and ran. After Qin Lianyu, Li Fengyu, and Li Zixian blinked out for a moment, they hurriedly ran as well. Even the most powerful Ling Han chose to run, so what could they fight for? However, some people did not know fear at all, and even thought that this was a part of the Restore Heaven Academy's exam, and charged overexcitedly. The gigantic corpse monster waved its hand, stirring up the winds and clouds. The entire ground rippled like a carpet, and those who charged forward were instantly smashed into mincemeat. A terrifying force swept out, chasing after the others. Pung, 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 pung. Ling Han and the others were all sent flying. In an instant, they were sent flying several miles away, and all of them vomited blood. This was also because Ling Han reacted quickly and ran away at the first possible moment. Otherwise, if he was any closer, he would also have been turned into dust. Not only them, but many others were also sent flying. However, they were much more miserable. Some had their arms broken, some had their legs broken, and some had their sternum broken. Other than a few people who had just entered the valley, who only vomited blood, the others were all seriously injured. So, what if the people here were all geniuses? In front of this giant corpse monster, they couldn't even be considered cannon fodder. The gap between them was indescribably large. With such a strike, at least 1/10 of the people who passed the first stage of the exam died a violent death. After this giant corpse monster delivered a strike, it seemed to awaken from a dazed state. A dark red light appeared in its two eye sockets, sweeping over the living beings on the ground, and a terrifying smile appeared at the corners of its mouth. This corpse monster actually possessed self-awareness. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. No matter how strong corpse soldiers were, they were only equivalent to puppets and could be dealt with, but once they developed intelligence, that would be terrifying. What to do? Obviously, this corpse monster had set its eyes on them and wanted to feed on their flesh and blood. But being targeted by such a terrifying and ferocious creature, could they escape? Ling Han wondered if it was time to use the Black Tower. This giant corpse monster probably reached the level of the Shattering Void tier, or even surpassed normal Shattering Void tier cultivators, and couldn't be stopped at all. You actually dare to be impudent here? At this moment, a figure appeared in the sky. It was a woman holding a long sword. She looked to be only about 30 years old, dressed in palace attire, graceful and gorgeous, and extremely beautiful. Ling Han's pupils involuntarily tightened. He couldn't see through this woman's cultivation at all. Azure Phoenix, Divine Empress. Qin Lianyu and Li Fengyu exclaimed at the same time, their faces filled with incomparable worship. Azure Phoenix, Divine Empress. Cloud Phoenix, Sect's current sect master. Shattering Void tier elite. No, according to Feng Piyun, she wasn't only a Shattering Void tier elite, but also a peak existence of the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier. In terms of tier alone, she was number 1 in the present age. Being able to become the leader of one of the 5 great sects, how could Azure Phoenix, Divine Empress, not be a martial art genius? However, she was a person who knew how many centuries old, yet she looked to be only about 30 years old, with skin as beautiful as jade and filled with an elegant temperament. The giant corpse monster seemed to be somewhat afraid of Azure Phoenix, Divine Empress, and didn't attack immediately. Instead, it roared at the sky, and a strange thing happened. A row of eyes grew out of its face, no more, no less, exactly 9. Each eye presented a different color, but without exception, they were all leaning towards blood red, emitting a sinister and violent aura. Nine-Eyed Corpse King. Ling Han finally recalled a monster that only appeared in legends. What Nine-Eyed Corpse Kings? There was no lack of curious babies here, actually still having the mood to ask at this time. Ling Han led everyone to retreat as he said, according to the 1,000 Corpse Sect's classification of corpse soldiers' strength, there are a total of 3 major grades: Bronze Armored Corpse, silver armored corpse, and gold armored corpse. Each major grade corresponds to 3 minor grades, 9 grades in total, matching with the 9 tiers of martial art from body refining to heaven tier. And reaching the Shattering Void tier is called Corpse King. The Corpse King's strength depends on how many extra eyes it grows, and 1 more eye is equivalent to 1 more tier. Everyone was shocked, and said, "Then doesn't this Corpse King have the cultivation of the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier?" Ling Han nodded, but the worry on his face lessened a lot, because Azure Phoenix Divine Empress was at the consummate level of the Shattering Void tier. Even if she wasn't a super genius, as long as she had battle prowess matching her tier, she wouldn't be weaker than this 9-eyed Corpse King. This Corpse King had indeed just evolved, but once formed, it had the strength of 9 eyes. Truly shocking. 9-eyed Corpse King, Azure Phoenix Divine Empress also snorted, and raised the long sword horizontally. Wung. Vein-like patterns flashed, incomparably resplendent. Heavenly Phoenix Sword. Ling Han exclaimed, his gaze extremely complicated. This sword was used by Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden back then, but at that time, this sword was only a 9th tier spirit tool, and now it advanced into 10th tier. Apparently, after Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden charged into the Shattering Void tier, she also nurtured this treasured sword into a 10th tier spirit tool. Seeing an object and thinking of her, Ling Han was obviously extremely emotional. "I say, boss, you're staring so lecherously at Azure Phoenix Divine Empress. Are you moved?" Li Fengyu began to talk again. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 669. Move your sister's heart. Ling Han couldn't help but smack him. Li Fengyu turned pale with fright and said, "You really have ambitions for my sister. I say, brother-in-law, let's discuss the dowry." "Brother." Li Zixien finally exploded, hitting Li Fengyu. Not only her, but Zhu Xian'er and Hunyou also happily joined the ranks, beating this big mouth until he screamed repeatedly, paying the price for his cheap mouth. Azure Phoenix Divine Empress raised her long sword and slashed at the 9-eyed Corpse King. A Shattering Void tier attack was too terrifying. Sword ray soared through the sky, and hung. Stars were shattered by the sword ray, turning into countless fragments that fell and scattered in every corner of the vast lands. The 9-eyed Corpse King, however, was calm and unafraid. Pung, pung, pung. It stepped on its enormous feet towards Azure Phoenix Divine Empress, sprinting at an extremely high speed, while the corpses on its body screamed one after another, turning into seemingly substantial waves that shot out. Azure Phoenix Divine Empress snorted heavily, and similarly let out a long howl towards the sky. Like a phoenix's cry, the sound wave took form, turning into an Azure Divine Phoenix that welcomed the sound wave released by the 9-eyed Corpse King. Pung, pung, pung. The sound waves collided, and the intents of martial art fiercely collided, raising an incomparably resplendent radiance that illuminated the sky. In the sky, countless stars were forcibly shattered, turning into small fragments that fell down, but most couldn't pass through the layer of terrifying astral winds above the continent, directly shattering into powder. The 9-eyed Corpse King's soundwave attack was considered to be neutralized by Heavenly Phoenix Divine Empress, but the aftermath still rolled out, sending the people who already escaped the valley flying. Like kites with broken strings, they flew in the sky and landed with paw, all spitting out blood. A Shattering Void tier elite's attack, even if it was neutralized and only the aftermath of the aftermath remained, it was still filled with shocking destructive power. If the people here weren't at the Flower Blossom tier or Spiritual Infant tier, then under this attack, it wouldn't just be a matter of spitting out blood. They would all die. Even so, those in the Flower Blossom tier all had a few broken bones, and those in the Spiritual Infant tier were slightly better off, only spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood. Ling Han held Zhu Xian'er and Hunyou in his arms, and forcefully took this attack with his back. With his physique that was comparable to 8th tier rare metal, forcefully taking the soundwave attack only made his expression a bit ugly, but not to the extent of vomiting blood. "Brother-in-law, save me." Li Fengyu's face was full of blood. It was unknown whether it was from the beating just now or from the shock of the sound wave. Sure enough, as long as there was life, there would be no end to despicable acts. "Ha ha ha, what are you guys doing? Why do you look so miserable?" The rabbit appeared, holding a carrot in its mouth. It was unknown whether it had found it or stolen it from somewhere. With so much commotion, it naturally sensed it and ran over to join in the fun. "Nonsense. Two great shattering void tier elites are in the midst of a battle. Can't you be on your own?" Ling Han said grumpily. "Yo, this girl's not bad, just right to be Uncle Rabbit's maid." The rabbit stared at the heavenly phoenix divine maiden in the sky while chewing on the spirit medicine, its hoodlum nature fully revealed. Ling Han sighed and said, "Li Big Mouth, you've met a kindred spirit. Come, become sworn brothers with the rabbit." "TSK, what status does Uncle Rabbit have?" "This brat is Uncle Rabbit's 18th generation grandson, and Uncle Rabbit isn't even willing." The rabbit disparaged Li Fengyu as worthless. Li Fengyu wasn't annoyed, and said to Hunyo, "Lady Hunyo, let's eat rabbit meat." "Okay." Hunyo instantly beamed with joy, and her fierce gaze locked onto the rabbit's butt. Her small mouth opened, and saliva flowed out. The rabbit couldn't help but cover its butt and said, "Damn brat, if you dare to incite this girl again, be careful that Uncle Rabbit will kick your face full of gold." Ling Han grabbed Hunyo, not letting them make a ruckus at this time, and said, Come, move a few rocks over. We'll play here, and at this distance it should be safe." His gaze swept over, and he already saw Rain Emperor and Mu Rongqing, so he naturally relaxed. Azure Phoenix, Divine Empress, and the Nine-Eyed Corpse King fought fiercely. This was the strongest battle on the level of the Shattering Void tier. Even Ling Han hadn't seen it in his previous life, so he obviously couldn't miss it. Previously, although Feng Peyun also attacked outside Million Treasures City, there was the Fourth Killing Formations blockade at that time, and no one could see the specific battle. However, it was different now. The Nine-Eyed Corpse King was 300 meters tall, and he could see everything clearly. Ling Han also cultivated the Eye of Truth, so he could obviously see it even more clearly. Azure Phoenix, Divine Empress, was truly powerful. A perfect Shattering Void tier elite could be said to be unstoppable in this world, and added with the 10th tier spirit tool, Heavenly Phoenix Sword, its destructive power was incomparably powerful. Even if the corpses on the Nine-Eyed Corpse King's body were once Heaven tier and Shattering Void tier elites, a deep sword mark would appear after being slashed by a sword. However, the Nine-Eyed Corpse King's body was too massive, and being slashed by a sword was like a normal person being cut by a nail clipper. It was just a small injury. The Corpse King wasn't the normal corpse soldier. Such an existence already formed its own consciousness, as if nurturing a new life, a new species between heaven and earth. It didn't feel pain, but became enraged. All the corpses on its body raised their heads and roared angrily, and the sound waves turned into a giant spear that the Nine-Eyed Corpse King held, piercing towards Azure Phoenix, Divine Empress. "Evil creature, you still haven't given up your head." Azure Phoenix, Divine Empress shouted lightly. The Heavenly Phoenix sword slashed out a 300-meter-long sword ray, astonishingly terrifying. The Nine-Eyed Corpse King roared again and again. Its physique was too tyrannical, and with the support of vein-like patterns, it wouldn't be much inferior to 10th tier rare metal. If Azure Phoenix Divine Empress didn't slash with a 10th tier spirit tool and condense herself into sword ray, she really might not be able to do anything to its defense. It waved its two arms and brought them together in the middle, actually wanting to slap Azure Phoenix, Divine Empress, to death. Pa! The two huge palms clasped together, emitting a deafening sound. 99% of the people present were bleeding from the 7 apertures of their heads. It was an appalling sight to behold. Some people even fainted from the impact of the sound. Azure Phoenix Divine Empress was actually slapped to death, just like that. Hung! An azure flame burst forth from the skeleton's palms, turning into flames that filled the sky. brighter than the sun. The nine-eyed corpse king roared strangely and hurriedly retracted its hands. Azure Phoenix, divine empress, stood proudly in the sky, her entire body burning with azure divine flames, forming a flaming tail behind her that was 3,000 meters long, making her look even more beautiful and moving. This woman isn't a pure human. Uncle Rabbit can sense a shred of true phoenix bloodline in her, the rabbit said while gnawing on spirit medicine. However, compared to Uncle Rabbit's pure bloodline, she's far from it. As expected, it's more suitable to be Uncle Rabbit's maid. True Phoenix bloodline. Chapter 670. True Phoenix. In the legends, true phoenixes stood side by side with true dragons, and true dragons were the strongest divine beasts. For example, the 9 dragons tyrant body art that Ling Han cultivated, why did it use 9 dragons as the power standard? It was because the power of true dragons was the strongest. Divine beasts, favored by the heavens, didn't need to cultivate at all, and possessed terrifying strength in adulthood. The power of true dragons could even shatter the firmament and break open the galaxy, thus becoming the divine realm's power measurement standard. Of course, martial artists could still surpass the power of true dragons, or else there wouldn't be the power of 9 dragons. But here, the power of true dragons and true phoenixes was definitely the limit of limits. If Azure Phoenix, divine empress, could truly possess the complete power of true phoenixes, then she only needed to casually slap, and this corpse king would scatter into a skeleton again. The 5 great sects all inherited from the divine realm. For example, Zishuesian was a descendant of a great thunder-related clan in the divine realm, extremely powerful. Thus, Azure Phoenix, divine empress, was also very likely a descendant of the divine realm, so possessing a trace of true phoenix bloodline wasn't strange. The 9-eyed corpse king actually revealed a hint of fear. For a corpse soldier that didn't fear death and didn't know pain, this was an inconceivable thing. That was also because the 9-eyed corpse king's level was too high, actually deriving self-awareness, and thus knowing how to weigh the situation. However, the corpse soldier's body was full of brutality after all. It quickly suppressed the fear in its heart, and with a loud roar, chong chong chong, eerie white bone spurs grew all over its body. Each one was 30 meters long, making it seem like a hedgehog. The corpse king once again charged towards Azure Phoenix, divine empress. Gray vein-like patterns shone on each bone spur, emitting an aura that made people despair. Ling Han paled in shock and said, "Not good." What Zhu Xian'er and the others feared the most now was hearing Ling Han say "not good." Every time he said "not good," then something bad definitely happened. "Brother-in-law, can you not say "not good"?" Li Feng Yu said, trembling. Ling Han shook his head and said, "This corpse king just awakened. 9 eyes opened together before, and now bone spurs grew. I think it's still in the process of fusing with those corpses and hasn't reached its complete state." Qin Lianyu turned pale with fright and said, "You mean, after it finishes fusing, it'll become even stronger?" "Of course." Ling Han sighed. "Hiss now." Azure Phoenix, divine empress, was only on par with the 9-eyed corpse king. If this corpse king became stronger, wouldn't even Azure Phoenix, divine empress, be unable to suppress it? This corpse king looked like it could fuse with corpses. If Azure Phoenix, divine empress, was killed, and her corpse was also absorbed, then how strong would it become? He was about to break through the limits of the shattering void tier and advance into the immortal level, right? Everyone's hands and feet went cold. If this really was the case, then there wouldn't be a single pure land left in the entire continent. They would all be wiped clean by this corpse king, devoured flesh and blood, merging with corpses and bones, evolving into the most powerful corpse soldier in history. Ling Han wondered if this had anything to do with the 1,000 Corpse sect. This place was most likely an ancient battlefield. The experts of the 5 sects of the divine world descended here and fought against the rebels. The final result was naturally the burial of the golden age of martial art 10,000 years ago. The 1,000 Corpse sect was also a great sect of the divine world, so it definitely had a way to escape the refinement of the last realm pill. Then, they could secretly tamper here, turning the corpses that should have decayed into corpse soldiers. However, with the 5 great sects overseeing, they didn't dare to do it brazenly, and could only do it slowly. In the end, they created such a monster. Ling Han couldn't be sure, but he could conclude that this definitely had something to do with a 1,000 corpse sect. After growing bone spurs, the Corpse King's battle prowess increased greatly. Each bone spur was equivalent to a heavenly spear, covered in vein-like patterns, and could even pose a huge threat to Shattering Void tier elites. Azure Phoenix Divine Empress didn't dare to attack directly, constantly moving her figure to avoid the sharpness. After all, her physique couldn't compare to the Corpse King's. However, she didn't just dodge and kept counterattacking with her long sword, unleashing a world-shocking sword ray. Moreover, her tail was completely formed from flames, causing considerable trouble to the Corpse King as it swept past. Those flames were definitely not ordinary flames, with shocking destructive power. Whenever they swept past the Corpse King's body, it would leave behind scorch marks and burn the corpses into ashes. In a short period of time, the 2 great elites were still in a state of being evenly matched. However, as Ling Han said, this Corpse King was actually like a newborn infant. At first, it only had pure instincts. Killing was its nature, and it only moved according to its instincts. However, as it battled, it learned how to use its power, and it itself seemed to be growing, becoming more and more terrifying. This change was extremely obvious, because the corpses and bones on its body were fusing together as if they weren't hard bones, but were made of sand. In the process of fusing, the Corpse King's body was also slowly shrinking, but its power was increasing. Ling Han's heart trembled, and he said, previously, it was only over 10,000 corpse soldiers attacking together, but now it's 1,000, then 100, and finally, only 1 remains. Everyone was smart and immediately understood. A decrease in numbers wasn't a good thing. On the contrary, it couldn't be worse. Even if 10,000 people worked together, could the power blasted out reach the superposition of 10,000 parts of power? Definitely not. But 1,000 people, each person's power multiplied by 10 times, and then attacking together, who would be stronger? Not to mention 110 people until there was only 1 left, the power multiplied by 10,000 times, and that was the complete power of 10,000 people, without the slightest discount. The Corpse King was advancing in this direction. Azure Phoenix Divine Empress obviously came out as well. Her sword's momentum was even more urgent. Pu, sword ray slashed on the Corpse King's body, continuously sweeping off broken bones, but for a corpse soldier's massive body, this was completely a small matter. Moreover, as its body became smaller, the Corpse King's power became stronger and stronger, and its defense became stronger and stronger. Moreover, the area of defense was still shrinking. This really wasn't a joyous piece of news. After less than half a day, the Corpse King's body already shrunk by half and was only 150 meters tall, but the bloody light in its eyes more than doubled, making one's heart feel like it was about to burst.
Pa.
The Corpse King's movement stiffened, and another eye actually grew out on its forehead. 10 eyes. 9 eyes was the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier. Then what about 10 eyes? It definitely couldn't become God tier, but battle prowess would at least increase by another star. Shattering Void tier battle prowess was extremely terrifying in the first place, and wanting to increase battle prowess by 1 star was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Now that the Corpse King further fused with its body, it finally obtained a qualitative change, its whole body's aura skyrocketing. Hong, the entire Ghost Lock Valley collapsed. The Corpse King attacked again, its bone spikes shocking the heavens, collapsing stars as if it was going to destroy the world. Azure Phoenix Divine Empress finally revealed a cautious expression, reaching out to wipe the Heavenly Phoenix sword, and said, "Open." Wung. The patterns on the Heavenly Phoenix sword shone again, and were several hundred times stronger. A massive rainbow phoenix flew out from the sword, as if a god had descended, emitting endless divine might. Tool Spirit, 10th Tier Tool Spirit. Chapter 671. Let's begin, an important figure in the academy said. There was a silhouette of a sun and moon behind him, indicating that he was a great elite of the sun-moon tier. Although he was still in the low extreme, this kind of elite was already worthy of worship. After advancing into the immortal level, each minor level was a peak that would cause one to exclaim in admiration. There were pitifully few people who could conquer one peak after another. The low extreme of the sun-moon tier could be considered to be standing on the 5th peak, and this was an extremely high peak. Climbing the previous 4 peaks could be considered easy, but if one wanted to cross over this one, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Everyone held their breaths, not even daring to breathe loudly. Although there were a great many people here who had powerful backgrounds, respect for elites was the most basic quality. Only profligate young masters would act arrogantly by relying on their clan's background. The White Star Tower can accommodate 10,000 people at the same time. Line up one by one and enter. When it is full, there will naturally be a tool spirit to stop you, this important figure said. Make the best use of your time, and strive to complete everyone's assessment by today. Yes. Everyone could not help but nod. Under the influence of the aura of an elite, their emotions could not help but be affected. Everyone lined up and entered into that 9-storied white tower one after another. This was obviously a precious tool that possessed an independent space. Otherwise, it was definitely impossible for 10,000 people to take the assessment at the same time. However, the speed at which the assessment was carried out was really fast. Before all 10,000 people had entered, there were already people coming out one after another, and they were even able to catch up to the speed at which they had entered. Every time someone passed the assessment of a level of the tower, this treasured tower would make that level light up accordingly, and the results would be recorded by the tool spirit. No one could cheat. If one could really deceive this god tool, it would actually be even more difficult than passing through the 9-story tower. Those who were determined to achieve a good result all stayed behind without prior agreement, wanting to be the last one to appear. Blockhead Luo Ba is right there. Quickly greet him, Li Weiwei urged. Is it really all right for you to be like this? Ling Han shook his head and laughed in spite of himself. This unruly young lady really harbored a grudge against him and tirelessly wanted him to suffer a defeat. He naturally would not go over, but the Luo brothers had also discovered him. Luo Lai immediately revealed an angry expression and whispered a few words in the ear of a young man beside him. The two of them walked over at the same time. That other person was naturally Luo Ba. This person lived up to his name. His figure was tall and sturdy, just like an overlord, and his aura was even more astonishing. There were circles of divine light flickering around him, as if he was the son of a god. Greetings, 4th young lady. The Luo brothers saluted Li Weiwei at the same time. Li Weiwei nodded in a very reserved manner. She was the daughter of the left minister, and the descendants of great clans that could stand on equal footing with her in the imperial capital could be counted on one's fingers. Luo Ba then walked towards Ling Han and calmly said, "Is this brother Ling who has come from a small world?" "I am Ling Han," Ling Han replied, similarly very calmly. "Thank you for your guidance, my younger brother," Luo Ba said darkly, flames of fury dancing in his eyes. Though the Luo clan was not one of the most powerful clans in the imperial capital, it was even more so not one that could be humiliated by a lowly commoner from a small world. Ling Han chuckled and said, "It was nothing, no need to be polite."
Fuck.
The Luo brothers were unable to restrain their anger. They were not thanking him at all. Alright, Luo Ba was obviously being sarcastic, but you actually took it seriously. Luo Ba could not help but humph, and said, "No one can humiliate a member of my Luo clan." At first, he had wanted to suppress Ling Han verbally, but he had not thought that Ling Han would not act according to common sense at all, causing his punch to be completely powerless, and instead, it was him who felt extremely uncomfortable. Thus, he directly revealed a ferocious expression. "Oh, do you want to fight?" Ling Han asked with a smile. In the shattering void tier, he really did not have anyone that he was afraid of. Even if it was the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, if she suppressed her cultivation level back to the shattering void tier, he would definitely suppress her until she would call him Big Brother. Fight! Fight! Meanwhile, Li Weiwei was eager to see the world in chaos and immediately brandished her delicate fists at one side. Luo Ba smirked coldly and said, "You are really cunning. This is the Scarlet Heaven Academy. Who would dare to be impudent here? However, even if you have entered into the academy, I will still challenge you, and if you do not manage to enter into the academy, you are dead for sure." Ling Han rubbed his chin, smiled, and said, "Is it really all right for you to threaten me like this? Aren't you afraid that you will not be a match for me, and instead be beaten to the point of begging for mercy by me?"
Haha.
Luo Ba laughed coldly. What a joke. He was a well-known figure among the younger generation of the Luo clan and had great hopes placed on him. How could he be defeated by a lowly commoner from a small world? If it were not for the fact that he wanted to charge for the maximum battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier, with the resources of the Luo clan, he would have long since advanced into the immortal level. But for the sake of a brighter future, he would not charge for the immortal level before he was 100 years old, unless he had reached battle prowess of 20 stars in advance. And this was also a very common understanding. Before the age of 100, they would charge for the maximum battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier. In any case, they were still young. And when they reached 20 stars of Shattering Void tier and broke through again, they would be able to become a 1-star genius and possess super battle prowess that could surpass a sub-minor level. "You just wait," he said word by word. "You're not stuttering, are you?" Ling Han asked, pretending to be worried. How pitiful. The younger brother is an idiot, and the older brother stutters. Sigh. The Luo brothers were unable to restrain their fury and had an irrepressible urge to rush up and make a move. Fortunately, they managed to control themselves. If they rashly made a move in the academy, and moreover on such an important day like today, it would be useless even if they had the face of the Luo clan. They would definitely be expelled from the academy and would never be able to enter again. Come, let's go for the assessment. Luo Ba pulled on his younger brother, lest the latter's impulsiveness brought him great trouble. Strength was the way of the king. He wanted to climb up to the 5th level of the tall tower and let everyone know that he, Luo Ba, was the only king tier of the younger generation. After a while, what? The 4th level of the tower has lit up. If he could advance another step and reach the 5th level, he would have a chance of becoming a 1-star genius. There's such a saying? Of course. What do you think this test is for? It's a test of one's future potential. 5 towers means 1-star genius, 6 towers means 2 stars, 7 towers means 3 stars, 8 towers means 4 stars, and 9 towers means 5 stars. Of course, this is only a kind of potential, and not a definite one. You still have to work hard on your own. Therefore, those who did not pass the assessment in previous years can also participate again, as long as they do not exceed the age limit of 100 years. Because if you work hard, you might be able to change yourself, and you might even encounter some fated opportunities. So that's how it is. The newcomers all nodded, and at the same time, they looked at the 9-level White Tower. Though the 3rd level had occasionally lit up before, it was the first time that the 4th level had lit up. Who is so fierce? Who else? Didn't you guys see Luo Ba go in just now? Hiss, so it's him. No wonder he could pass through the 4th level. I wonder if he can also make the 5th level light up. It's a little difficult, but not impossible. Just as everyone was talking, the body of the 5th level of the tower lit up. Instantly, the crowd was in an uproar. It was more refreshing to read on one's phone. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.